Wednesday, June 14th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the board will be moving into executive session for the purpose of collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment or promotion or demotion or discipline or suspension or removal of a particular person or corporation. The board will also be moving into exec to discuss next steps in developing future contract details for the position of the superintendent. Can I have a motion to move to exec? Can I have a second? All in favor? Aye. The board will be back at approximately 7 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 14th. Can I have a motion to, oh, we're already open, just kidding. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
So moved.
Can I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're going to start off by standing for the pledge. Today's Flag Day, so it's extra special.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get moving this evening, I would like to call attention to our wonderful staff members that have retired during the 22-23 school year. I'm just going to read them off by name and their position. We have Donna Teresi, principal; Ellen Baig, elementary teacher; Lori Baisley, elementary teacher; Robert Malfetta, technology teacher; Elisa Rosen, elementary teacher; Kathleen LaJudas, teaching assistant; Lisa Verratti Kennedy, teacher's aide; Victoria Ashley, teaching assistant; Larry Bartle, full-time monitor; Patricia Laker is a chauffeur; William Rundle, custodian; Frank Anderson, custodian; Bruce Pappas, chauffeur; David Travis, custodian; and Helen Finelli as teacher aide. Thank you so much for all of your hard work here at Hendrick Hudson. Okay, so we also have two of our board members celebrating their last and final board meeting, possibly, unless we add one in there. We have Corey and Allie. Corey served on the board for 6 years and Allie for 3, and the board would like to thank you for all your service. Okay, and now on to our recognition piece this evening. I'd like to call up Christina Fiel, who's going to introduce us to some of our amazing community businesses that are part of our Sailors work-based learning.
Hi. So before I get started, I believe there was the video. So I wanted to start with the kids' voice in all of this. So some of them couldn't be with us here tonight, so I wanted to make sure they were represented. Sorry. Okay. Can you tell me some of the jobs you had this year?
The food pantry,
Uh-huh.
the library, hard one,
It is hard to remember. We went there a few times. It was in the Cortland Town Center. Old Navy, that's right. What did you like about working at the library?
shot in the cell,
You like stocking shelves at the library?
and at the food pantry.
And at the food pantry?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like going to work?
Yeah.
How does it make you feel? Makes you feel awesome? How does going to work make you feel?
Happy.
Happy? You like having a job?
Yes.
All right, Kate. Where did you work this year?
Hey, food pantry.
That's right, you worked at the food pantry.
With Miss Field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Miss Price.
How did working at the food pantry make you feel?
Happy.
Happy? What was your favorite thing to do at the food pantry?
So, the chips there.
To stock the shelves?
Eat snacks there.
Eat some snacks.
And Sprite there.
How does having a job at school make you feel?
Happy.
What was your favorite job?
On Avelinos.
What did you like about Avelinos?
Read the newspaper.
So that's just a little bit from our fearless interns, and I just wanted to thank them because without them and their fearlessness to go into work, we wouldn't be here celebrating anything. I'm always in awe of their willingness to try. A few of those students up there are my designated go-to interns. So if we have a new job site, I'm like, hey, we have somewhere new. Do you want to try first? Because one, they're going to give me honest feedback, and two, I can just always count on them to like really put their best foot forward. So again, this would not be possible without any of them. So a little bit of a background, work-based learning, or WBL, as you'll hear myself and Lisa throw around. It provides our students with authentic opportunities to practice skills needed to gain employment after high school. But it's so much more than that, and I think since I've been at Hendrick Hudson, one of our businesses has been with us for years, so has the library. There's a few of us who have been together for a long time, but over the last 2 years we've had a real focus on bringing work-based learning in its entirety to the program. And what I've seen this year is outside of the academics, the social skills, it's that sense of community, and it inherently creates a much more inclusive environment because they are fully integrated into the work setting. I am usually sitting somewhere in a corner where, some people are like, why is this lady here from, when they're at the library, I'm usually sitting off to the side where I can see, but far away because I want it to be as authentic as possible. The same can be said for my counterpart, Ms. Price, who would love to be here, but she's getting married this weekend, so she has quite a few things going on. Our partnerships include Avelinos. They've been with us for 7 years. The Let It Shine Food Pantry, we have Ms. Kylie Cole here representing them today. The Hen Hud Free Library, we have Jill Davis and Terry Jersey. Premier Athletic Club, and Old Navy. And those are the ones that we've been consistently at this year. And before I present them with a certificate of recognition, I do want to thank them for providing us with these meaningful opportunities. It's not easy to say yes to this. It's usually a lot of phone calls on my end, a few pop-bys, but these businesses said yes without question. They're like, yep, sure, let's make it work. And it's just been, I really can't put it into words, and I tried to share and capture a little bit of it in pictures for you guys, but what it really is. It's the best part of my day when I get to go to a job site and just seeing them be part of their community. Like, that's what this is all about. And they're frequent flyers to all of their job sites. The food pantry, we do tend to go there to sell our dog treats, which they make in the program. We did go over there in February, so we do go to their market. It's just hands down the best. And I really do thank the board, the high school, Lisa, because I do often call and say, hey, I have a really crazy idea. And after maybe a little bit of an eye roll, it's like, all right, let's make it work. And none of it would be possible without any of you guys. So, but that being said, I do want to call up Jill Davis and Sarah Jersey. And we wanted to present you guys with this lovely toast and then a certificate of appreciation. I really do appreciate all you guys do for
Appreciate what you guys
for
do.
us.
Thank you.
And then And representing Let It Shine today is the lovely Kai Nicole. And our hopes is that more businesses see this and are willing to join over the next year, and this can only continue to grow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our audience comments for agenda and non-agenda items. All right, 2 speakers, okay?
Linda McMahon.
Linda, there's going to be a clock with 3 minutes. Each speaker gets 3 minutes to speak. And when the time runs out, we have to move on to the next speaker.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I'm a concerned community member who has 2 children that graduated from Hen Hud, one in 2012 and one in 2015. Since then, the academic proficiencies have plummeted in this district. Conversations seem to be solely around the Princeton plan and not about the poor performance of the district over these past 10 years. 2/3 of this community don't have children in the schools and are totally unaware that there was a school restructuring, taking away the community-based primary schools, nor are they aware of the plummeting scores. We all have a vested interest in this community and the schools. About 20 years ago, the Board of Ed at that time tried to implement the Princeton plan, and it was overwhelmingly rejected by the community. There were some speakers at the forum, the Princeton Plan Forum last week, who made the comment that the Board of Ed, that the 2 of the candidates that were running for office were elected, and they were pro-Princeton Plan candidates. Therefore, they made the comment that the community has spoken and that the community is for this plan. However, they didn't mention that the Hen Hud Teachers Association had sent out a mass mailing of propaganda, and I have it right here, stating that the board is trying to separate elementary school students based on race and social economic status, and that the board is trying to adopt this plan without conducting a thorough cost analysis, without involving community members before making a consequential change, without consulting with parents and educators. This is exactly what the past Board of Ed and administrations did, what they're accusing this current board of doing. And after getting this piece of literature, then it was followed up by the Teachers Association supporting 2 of the candidates, saying that they're pro-student, pro-education trustees. This has been a community that has historically supported the schools and supported teachers. It's no wonder that the community voted for these teachers, for these candidates, because they were supported by the teachers. I wouldn't say that they were voted in because they're pro-Princeton plan. They could have been voted in because of the misinformation that was provided to them. Regarding the superintendent search, the district needs a strong leader with a proven record of school academic achievement, a leader that will hold administration accountable for future student performance, a leader that will not tolerate misleading information to be circulated throughout the community, a leader who will unite this community by what we have in common and not our differences. Lastly, just going back to the Princeton plan, I think that something should be looked at is that how much potential state aid could be lost by Princeton plan or grade banding. Thank you. Next speaker is Will Walsh.
Initially, my thanks to Allie and Corey. Congratulations, well done. You now have your Wednesday evenings back. For the remaining members of the board, with respect to the search for a new superintendent, I would request that you conduct an open search. I've spoken with the consultants on this and understand their views in the industry trend over the last decade. That said, I believe it is imperative that the district conduct an open search. Many reasons explain this view. First, this board has repeatedly stated that it seeks and promotes transparency, an approach that involves the board alone reviewing and interviewing candidates until the final candidate is identified. White smoke is sent out from the white cupola over the high school, and the designated candidate is allowed to step forward is inherently at odds with transparency. Second, this board needs assistance. A broader involvement of parents, teachers, and other community members as has been done in the last 2 searches, would prove beneficial. Third, the need for a new superintendent is a mess that this board created in the dark. It should be corrected in the open. Fourth, and most importantly, I do not trust you, and no one in the community should. You do not deserve our trust because of an overriding and blinding bias which undermines the selection process. No one in this community has any reason to believe that this board would seriously consider anyone, no matter how astounding her credentials, if the individual supported great banding, or simply made the obvious observation that the current status quo deserves a minimum of 3 years of application before being revisited. Conversely, this district should not hire as the next superintendent any individual who does his research on the board members and walks into the interview and states, "Of course we'll look at the numbers and interview the people because that's what they expect, but nudge, we know we're going to go back to the other way." While some members of this board would welcome such an individual, that individual is merely a lackey looking to win the job. He is not a leader for the district. Further, you do not deserve our trust due to the board's actions in March and early April. Those actions reflected a basic ineptitude. The board sought to make a major restructuring of the elementary schools without any identified academic reason, without surveying the community, without speaking with the teachers involved, and without abiding by the board's own goals. As far as credibility goes, the board left itself without a leg to stand on. The track record of this board substantially undermines any rational view that this board can act competently in the selection of the next superintendent if the entire process is confidential. Accordingly, again, I encourage the board to involve the teachers and the community in the process and conduct an open search. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything to pull from the consent agenda this evening? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. I know, I don't know where they are though. Do I have?
Motion to prayer.
Oh, it's gonna be right behind you. Will you scroll up a little bit for me, Greg? Okay, so our first donation this evening. The Hendrick Hudson High School is the recipient of the following donations for specific graduation awards. The Marcia Bailey Scholarship. The Hendrick Hudson High School Math Department, $180. Hendrick Hudson High School Activities Account, $800 by an anonymous donor. Doug Mowbray Art Award Scholarship. Helene and John McQuaid, $200. Awesome. I think there was one more. Oh, there's only one. That was it? Okay. All right, can I have a motion to approve the donations?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, next, our superintendent search update. Do you want to introduce?
Yes. So, it is me with a pleasure to invite 2 of my colleagues up that we worked with before, and to thank Nancy and Marilyn, who have been conducting the input part of the profile building that we've been trying to do on the new superintendent. So with that, I'm going to introduce Nancy first, and Nancy has been, the 2 of you have been working about a month now, is that correct? So with that, I'll let you take it.
Thank you, Dennis. It's very nice to be back at Hen Hud. Thank you for welcoming us. Thank you to all of you who have welcomed us here. Marilyn and I are embarking on what we consider to be a multi-phase project. We are working now in presenting the culmination of the development of a leadership profile to be able to get to the next steps of the process. Phase 1 is the development of this profile. Phase 2, recruitment of candidates. Phase 3, the screening of those candidates. Phase 4, bring candidates to the board for the board to meet and evaluate. And Phase 5 would be ultimately offering the appointment to the candidate the board feels best matches the profile. Marilyn and I have been gaining a great deal of information through the following 3 information gathering strategies. We've had invitational meetings. We've met with just about every member of the current board. We've met with a group of representative teachers. We've met with building level and district level administrators. We've met with the union leadership, and we've met with confidential clerical employees. Those were the invitational meetings that we have held. We also had 3 open meetings. One was by Zoom on a Monday evening. 2 of the others were in-person meetings. We had approximately 30 representative community members at those meetings. The online survey is something that received a great deal of response from the sailor community. As of noon today, the last time I looked at those responses, there were 87 comprehensive responses. And using the survey, the open meetings, the invitational meetings, we took a great deal of notes that helped us compile information that I will turn the podium over to Marilyn to present in a minute. Generally speaking, in meeting with each of the groups, we asked 3 questions. What do you celebrate here in Hen Hud? We asked that question because we felt we wanted to know what would be likely to attract an experienced and skilled administrator to the Hen Hud community. And what you celebrate could help us in talking to candidates who might be considering this leadership opportunity. The second question that we asked was, what do you see as the major leadership challenges that a new superintendent would be likely to face? And the third, what qualities, skills, and experiences do you consider to be essential in the next superintendent at Hen Hud? Those were framework prompt questions. I think we invited any other comments people wanted to make, but those just help frame our discussion to give us as much information as possible. With that, I will turn this over to Marilyn to present what you celebrate as a Hen Hud community.
Thank you, Nancy, and good evening, everyone. It's certainly my pleasure to be back, and greetings to everybody in the audience. Many of you were at our open meeting, so thank you for coming back. Okay, so the first slide that you see is really all about what folks told us they're proud of in the Hen Hud school community. So you can see a long history of widespread community involvement, a close-knit community where people care for and help one another, which was really special to Nancy and myself. I'm from a small town up outside of Buffalo, New York, so that was really important for us to make sure that we put in a strong sense of support and advocacy for all students, which you saw some of that this evening. Events in schools that are very well attended and celebrated by all residents. This was particularly interesting too, in that many folks in the community, even though they don't have children in the school, do come to a lot of the events, particularly the student performances. A multi-generational community. I think that I was really surprised to hear folks have been here for 5 to 6 different generations, and that was really, again, very special. A talented and experienced faculty, a very strong fine arts program, and a large variety of student opportunities very much appreciated by the residents. In the next slide, these are the kinds of things that folks told us they're proud of within the school settings. accelerated programs and honors classes at the high school, teaming at the middle school, STEM programs district-wide, programs for those students needing additional assistance, and of course these other opportunities, which I know was celebrated in your recent newsletter, named a Best Community for Music Education and a Project Lead the Way Distinguished School, which I believe was the only distinguished school in the state of New York. Athletic opportunities abound, and there was a large percentage of students participating, I think somewhere between 60 and 65%, grades 7 through 12. And again, a very positive student environment where students are very well mannered and they complete their work. And that came out of the teacher group. So that too was very interesting and certainly a very positive comment to be made by your teaching staff. In the next slide, these next slides are all about what people would like to see in an exceptional school superintendent. A person who is a person of character and integrity. We put that first because that is probably the most important piece that you want in your next superintendent. One who takes personal ownership of the outcome of district initiatives, not putting things off on anybody else, but taking the blame right here on the chin. And for whom the success of the district is the main priority, who leads by inspiring, innovating, and reuniting our community. There is a lot of organized chaos in the community, I will put it that way, because I think that's an interesting phrase. And one of the things that really came through is to unify and reunite. So we wanted to say reunite because we think reuniting is a little bit more to the point than reunifying. One who is a dynamic presence in our school community and who frequents district buildings, attends events, visits classrooms, and develops partnerships within the community, county, and state. This is particularly, that last piece, developing the partnerships, is particularly important with the decommissioning of Indian Point. And you want your next superintendent to be a collaborative leader, meaning that they create partnerships and collaborations with solid communication and people skills, who will be visible, accessible, build consensus, and inspire all district stakeholders to achieve mutually developed goals. And mutually developed goals means just that. The superintendent is not in it for himself or herself, you do it together. And that means everyone. Cultivate an environment of comfort and openness and encourage feedback from staff, students, and the community. Listen to it and act upon it. There's always a time when a superintendent has to make the decision, but you certainly want a lot of information and feedback from those that are important in the school community and that help you make kids successful. One who will chart a very bold course for the district's future by recognizing the diverse needs of students and prompting innovation, curiosity, and academic excellence. This really came out quite a bit, especially with the community groups. Improving student achievement via data-driven analysis and decision-making. We did find that there is an interesting dichotomy in data-driven analysis and decision-making, and that really needs to be a focal point for the time with Dr. Lauro and until the next superintendent is chosen, and then when the next superintendent takes office. Focusing on accountability of the administrative team in implementing district-wide curriculum and instructional goals and objectives. Again, we found a dichotomy. There doesn't seem to be a level of standards that are being implemented through all the various levels, K through 12. One who will raise expectations for all students by offering 21st century programs that enable students to be successful in the ever-changing world of work, ensuring students pursue opportunities and experiences that lead to college and career readiness, ensuring academic rigor in all course offerings, and providing robust professional development that aligns with curriculum goals and objectives. This particular slide is very, very important. And I would offer the Board of Education, as well as those in the audience and those watching this evening, to make sure you really focus on those 4 points, because this came up over and over and over again, particularly about readying students for the 21st century and ensuring that there is a different career path for all kids. College, great. Wonderful. But there should be other pathways for kids. And it's particularly important now as you're seeing students not wanting to go to college, but wanting to pursue different kinds of things in the world of work, particularly in certified digital programs. And a visionary strategist who skillfully assesses and evaluates the financial health of the district and develops a long-term action plan to sustain a stable tax base for all residents. Clearly, this is a worry amongst many in the community regarding decommissioning of Indian Point. Developing a multi-year facilities and grounds plan, ensuring safety and security in a changing school community environment. That came out from a number of groups. Seeks long-term alternative funding mechanisms to enable the district to allocate resources equitably across all schools. Again, with the decommissioning of Indian Point, there's some concerns about the ability to generate school resources and other opportunities, which is the last bullet, pursuing all available state, federal, school foundation, and other grant opportunities. Very, very important if you're looking at a decline in resources over the next 5 to 10 years. And one who will forge strong relationships. Again, there's that word, strong relationships, with faculty, staff, students, families, and all taxpayers through active listening, transparency, consistent, clear communication, and the ability to stay calm and composed during challenging situations, which we know we have at Hen Hud right now, but that doesn't mean to say that that won't change. And who will ignite passion and drive by being student-centered, honest, and exhibiting sound judgment and common sense. One who will celebrate a vibrant and inclusive school community that values diversity and cultural competence. This came out over and over and over again. Bringing proven experience working with diverse backgrounds, ensuring equal opportunities across all academics, arts, sports, and more, fostering a strong sense of belonging for all, advancing the district academically, socially, and emotionally, and creating positive overall school experiences for all students. And finally, here's the anticipated timeline that Nancy and I put together. Dennis has reviewed it, the board has reviewed it. The Board of Education endorses the specifications for the next superintendent, and we're hoping that they do this evening or shortly thereafter. Search application package to advertising venues would go out on or about June 21st. Consultants, Nancy and myself, would screen resumes, interview candidates, and conduct reference checks between July 1st and July 31st. Now we know that the applications will be out sometime around June 21st that week, and it will be a 30-day timeline period, but that doesn't mean that Nancy and I can't start working on interviewing folks and conducting reference checks. The slate of candidates will be brought to the Board of Education on or about August 1st, most likely the first week of August, and the Board of Education interviews will take place between August 9th and August 23rd. We're hoping that the board will consider, when they narrow this, the candidates down to one person, that they will do an on-site visitation to that person's school district, whether they're a current superintendent or whether they're a district administrator. Thank you. I don't know if the board has any questions for us, but we're happy to take them if you have a few minutes. Yes, Corey.
I just have one question. So this person seems like a fantastic person that we're looking for.
I know,
Right?
walking on water.
Are we looking for a unicorn? I mean, is this realistic?
I think it is realistic, yes.
Okay.
And one of the things that came out was, you know, we're going to be up against other school districts looking for superintendents. Well, I did a complete search over the last month and did one again today with New York State School Boards Association and New York State Council of School Superintendents to look at the positions that are available, particularly in this area. There aren't any right now. So you have this jump. Hen Hud has a jump on getting the word out and actually inviting folks to put in their search materials to be a great candidate for Hen Hud. There are two city ones that are Saugerties and Hudson, and then one up in the corner of New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts that reopened their search. There are some assistant superintendencies open, but basically there's nothing open right now in this area. The schools that did have openings have now put in interims. So I think Hen Hud has a great opportunity of attracting really fine candidates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Go ahead.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes, Jen?
Can you share with us what other school districts are doing as far as confidential or non-confidential searches?
My understanding, and Nancy's as well, is that all the school districts are doing confidential searches, which means that the Board of Education is doing the interviewing process along with the search firm, whether it's a BOCES firm, whether it's folks like me and Nancy, or other more national search consultants, which is like Hazard and Young and Atea.
And could you share the reasonings why this is the direction that other districts are going?
Sure. I mean, you know, superintendents have a contract between themselves and a Board of Education. If a Board of Education finds out without the superintendent talking to that board that they are going through a search process and they're meeting with all these different groups and that particular candidate doesn't get that particular job, they go back to their community and the board may not trust them anymore, may not think that they want to stay. There are, I would say there are at least 60 to 70% of New York State schools that are smaller school districts within smaller town structures. So, you know, that's a really important thing to consider. Everybody loves the superintendent that's there. If they find out that this person is out there and searching and that doesn't get the job, you know, then they come back and everybody's disappointed and filled with regret. We thought you loved us and you don't love us anymore. You know how that goes. So I think that it's much better to do a confidential search. And I can tell you that Nancy, in my experience, is that if a search is not confidential, it will not attract the kinds of people that you will want to represent Hen Hud and what the school community told us in all of those meetings we had.
So kind of to tack on to, because that was exactly what I was going to ask, but I have, so if you keep the search confidential, are there any ways, and you don't have to answer this now, it's just something that you guys can hopefully think about and come back to the board with, but if it is confidential, right, we're not going to share the actual candidates and allow the public to meet them or know who they are, how can we really, besides just building the profile together with the community, how can we bring the community in while being confidential? Not into the room, but are there ways, right, to pause and share with the community without releasing that confidential information?
You can keep the community apprised of your timeline on a timeline checklist that you can put up on your website. Mm-hmm. You can also invite groups to help you with putting questions together mm-hmm. that they might want you to ask on their behalf.
Okay.
I like that idea personally because I think community members have a lot of experience in their workplace as well as it within the school district. I know Bill was on the board before and he would have expertise in putting questions together for a superintendent candidate. And I know others in the audience and the people we met with would have that same kind of expertise. Because even though they may not have been on a board, they could be in the workforce and working in jobs that required them to do interviews of a variety of candidates. So I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
In your opinion, does a confidential superintendent search give you a larger pool of candidates?
I do think so. I've never done a study on it, but I would say yes. Nancy, do you have anything to add?
In my experience, when a search was not confidential and candidates reached the final 3 or final 4, we had candidates who we felt were excellent matches for the community, and they withdrew because the risk was too great for them, for their families in a number of cases, and for their entire professional career. So I definitely think it will reduce the number of candidates who would be good fits for any school district, but right now we're talking about Hen Hud.
So the timeline here has closing the window for resumes by the end of July. What happens if you haven't found the pool of candidates that you're looking for? What's the next step?
Then we're going to let you know that we don't have the right candidate for Hen Hud. And we'll meet with the board and we'll go over what we found and why we are going to make a recommendation to either reopen the search or hire an interim. I think Dr. Loro is here for a while longer. I don't know how long, but because that's your business with him. But that would be our recommendation: reopen or put an interim in for the next year, and reopen the search in the spring.
Thank you.
Spring of '24. Anything else? Yes.
If the decision for confidentiality is what is the board's choice to move forward, and with respect to a list of community questions, is there a best practice with respect to publishing some of the answers, provided the answers to those questions are not personally identifiable? Is it a way to share some of that so that people can get an idea on how to digest the information that's being presented to the board privately, but still feel part of the process?
I've never seen that. Doesn't say you can't do that. Nancy?
That's new to me as well, but new can be excellent. So I think we need to think about how that would be done. And as you said, not having any personally identifying information. I'd like to think about that, because there's no reason not to do it just because it hasn't been done that I'm aware of.
Great, I appreciate you considering it. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Thank you all very much for your hospitality, your courtesy. It's really been a very interesting and actually fun experience for us, getting back into things. So thank you again. And I'd like to thank the school community for coming out and giving us so much information. It was so very helpful. Thank you.
As well as Carmen for scheduling all of this. Thank you.
I think it's fair to share a lot of the community feedback I've received, I can't speak for anyone else on the board, has been very positive with respect to the experience they had in interacting with both of you. So thank you for sharing a lot of the experience that you've gained along the way. I've only heard positive things about how people felt and about the experience.
Continue that as we do our work, but thank you for the feedback. Feedback's always welcome.
Okay.
Can I just do one little
Yes.
on my superintendent's report, which is
Yep.
very brief. But
Sure.
because of the weather conditions, I thought we would bring this to everyone's attention. In looking ahead toward graduation on Friday evening and looking at Saturday, our rain date, both of them are rain and more rain. And then deciding today that it's probably not a good idea to move it to Sunday, which is Father's Day, and there are other plans that are being made. So the decision was made with Mr. Giovanizzi that graduation will be held in-house here on Friday at 6 p.m. and we will be using the dome, and we've engaged the PTA and the students to kind of transform the dome so it won't look like the dome inside and might look a little more like a graduation venue. So we'll see what they turn up with, but I think it's the best way to handle it given the conditions that we are expecting.
We decided that already? That's been decided? Yeah, that has been officially decided that we will not have graduation
Outside,
on the turf?
because of the rain. If you look at the detailed report, and
I know, I've been looking,
worse.
trust me, I've been looking at it like every hour on the hour.
It has gotten worse
Because-
again.
But today was supposed to be really bad, and it actually wasn't at all. So,
It's the problem is the planning for it. They need a good 24 hours in terms of setting up in advance, and that's the issue that we have, especially with exams going on.
yep.
All right, our next presentation this evening is with our wonderful elementary PTA. Are you three of you presenting? Awesome. So we have Antoinette and Dana and Mariella here with us this evening, and I'm going to step out of the way.
Good evening, everyone. So glad to be back. I don't feel like I want to cry this time. So, yeah, step in the right direction. So for those who don't know me, Dana Boyer, I have 2 students in the district, one in 4th grade and one in 1st grade.
I am Antoinette Pio. I have 4 boys in the district, 11th grade, 9th grade, 5th grade, and 4th grade.
And we're very happy to be back here.
So our volunteers, which is a big part of the PTA, we couldn't do what we do, at least half of it, without our wonderful PTAs, with our volunteers. So we have a list, and sorry if we forgot anyone, it's oversight. But this is our wonderful board. Most of them are coming back again for another year.
And for those that aren't, so we just want to pay tribute to Mariella, Casey, and Myra. It was a wonderful first year with you, and we're going to miss you terribly. We will hook you back in for special projects. We already know that one person cannot leave yearbook next year because she did a phenomenal job alongside the yearbook committee, so she will certainly be coming back, but we will miss those 3, and we will introduce the 3 new people that will be joining us on our executive committee shortly. But thank you to all the volunteers. Next slide.
Okay, so what we did this year, we have a total of 400 members, and we earned 4 badges by New York State PTA. What we've financially sponsored, Frank G. Lindsay had the bubble bus for first grade Abracadoodle Assembly, Candyland Dance. BB had Drum Tales of Africa, Apple of My Eye Dance. Furnace Woods had the bubble bus, ABC bowling field trip, and the Let's Glow dance. We held a spring festival, which was free for everyone. We had games, prizes, entertainment. We had dancing. I think we had the Chinese acrobats and things like that. So it was wonderful. It was a big hit. You would think that the families would come in and stay for like an hour, but there were some families there that stayed a total of 3 to 4 hours because there was just so much to do and so much to see. It was very engaging with all the kids. We had family fun nights. We had movies, games, crafts, and bingo. We had close to 30,000 in-building teacher and principal grants, including the One School, One Book author. About 15,000 in teacher staff appreciation recognition because our teachers are wonderful. 5 high school senior scholarships were awarded $500 each. In the past, each PTA would give 2 to each unit, and then this year we were able to give 5 because we united into 1. New York State Test Day Breakfast was offered for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We had science fair medals this year in place of t-shirts. We had Memorial Day flags that we purchased for all 3 buildings, and holiday gifts to students, transitional gifts to incoming kindergarten, 2nd and 4th grade, and 5th grade t-shirts. We also, did a lot of fundraising. Some might think that it was a lot, some might think that it wasn't, but I think we did okay, and we didn't overwhelm our families with everything else going on in the district. A very successful after-school academy program. We ran 4 sessions and made $30,000 in profit. Our school store was probably one of our biggest hits this year. We were able to bring it to all 3 buildings, and it was happiness all around. I mean, with the slime, the toys and fidget spinners and things like that. So October to June, our profit was $15,000. Festivals was about $11,000 profit. Our silent auction was $10,000 in profit, and those were the 4 big contributors for us this year.
And those who ran the academy, the teachers who came out and participated as program leaders or class leaders, thank you for doing so. To the committee who formed the academy, thank you for doing so. And to the school store team, it was amazing. And again, we hope that you stay next year and continue to lead that for us. So thank you.
And I just want to add, kindergartners love the school store. I mean, they were like the biggest buyers.
Yes.
All right, so our next slide is just some of the wonderful things that we've done this year. We tried to add a picture of everything that we ran through the year. Our dances, our fairs, breakfast with Frosty, some of our assemblies for cultural enrichment, the bike show, our ice cream truck that we had for Teacher Appreciation Week. It was wonderful to see all 3 buildings get the same thing across the board, just on different days. From the feedback, everybody was happy with that.
And thank you, Mariella, for making this beautiful slide for us.
Yeah,
Who's
thank
here
you.
tonight in the audience.
Should be on a committee next year.
Yes. All right. So as Antoinette mentioned, we were able to award 5 high school seniors with a scholarship, and we were able to present that scholarship this past week. It was wonderful to be present. I feel so much more in the know of what happens at those events. Now I'll be prepared to hound first my daughter and then my son when to apply. Keep your eye out for it. Melissa, Rada, thank you so much for engaging us and bringing us into that. We were happy to present. So I'm going to read what I read on Monday evening. Monday evening. The Hendrick Hudson Elementary PTA Scholarship is awarded to students who have volunteered at their elementary schools' PTA-hosted events and who have demonstrated in their essay how they exemplify the behavioral principles of Sailor Strong, safe, team player, respectful, organized, neighborly, and grit, as well as the Legacy Elementary School's principals, BB Soar, FGL Pride, and Furnace Woods Weiser. The recipients of this year's scholarship are Andre Porokin, Anthony Mills, Elizabeth Thursch, Morgan Davis, and Valeria Stratton. And Valeria, we're sorry that we didn't get your picture in time to have it here at the BOE meeting. Many of these individuals referenced in their essay about supporting their prior elementary school's fairs, organizing a talent show at their former elementary school to raise funds for charity, supporting the buildings in the transition to Princeton plan, meaning that they packed and moved belongings and did inventory checks, participating at a unified elementary PTA breakfast with Frosty in 2021 and 2022, and their time spent this year and last year at FGL through their peer leadership program. Being present in their former elementary school buildings was important since they knew that these events are powered by volunteers. One person referenced, "I remember the thrill I felt when I was a little kid and went to the fair, so I did my very best to make each kid's experience memorable." As for those behavioral principles that were taught, each student was able to explain how they have allowed them to flourish as students and see these traits as being valuable ones to possess in the future. Like one shared, "They built the foundation for my learning style." Another expressed how they have not only enhanced my personal and academic journey, but also instilled in me a deep sense of responsibility towards others and a commitment to making a positive impact on the world. Another reflected on the E, empathy, and pride, and S, safe and strong, as they shared, "Knowing that I can make a change in the lives of the people I talk to gives me the motivation to do more for my community and the people surrounding me." And lastly, another peer spoke to the A, accountability, and SOAR. "I've learned over the years that everyone is going to make mistakes. The mistake will not define you. How you handle the mistake is how you will be defined." And so the Hendrick Hudson Elementary PTA thanks them for their past service, and we wish them much success. Continue to push yourself to live out the principles taught to you, and we will cheer for you as you soar into the future, beaming with pride, all the while being wiser and standing strong. And I'm a big proponent of not forgetting about our past and our history. I think we should always celebrate that. And while we did sunset those 3, we were happy to have it part of their application, and some of them took that opportunity to share why those principles were important for them, but also interconnected with Sailor Strong. And I'm so proud of all the essays that we read. They were wonderful. And it kind of goes back to what we all said, what we want in a future superintendent, a person who can be proud of the community and what we do for one another, because we really do stand with one another. All right, this is me.
I know, you need a break.
All right, so what does the 2023 PTA look like? Well, we have 3 new executive committee members, and one is in the audience, Christy Tehan. She's going to be our recording secretary. Nancy Henning will take on the VP of Furnace Woods, and Romeo Sejam will be our treasurer. And then some of the ones that you've already seen before will be moving into other positions alongside them. So really excited. We're going to start a summer planning session with our volunteers. Principals, be on the lookout for the email tomorrow of dates. We'd love to meet with you because we want to make sure that we have our calendar of event right at the start of the year versus feeling rushed and doing things last minute. We want to create great events, building events, and all elementary events for next year. We want to continue to support those grants, and we will start the process early. We want to have the calendar out in the fall. We want to hopefully embark on the PTA PART program, which is Pick a Reading Partner. And since we do one school, one book, we think that we can accomplish that by picking some of the enhancements in that program and applying it to One School, One Book. And we want to apply for New York State and national PTA grants. This year we did that. We didn't win, but we did it. So we started the process, and we're going to do it again next year. And then one of our last slides is what we continue to hear and see from our caregivers, students. I wrote students twice. So, caregivers of students and the students. Big thing is around the infrastructure. So for Anthony Merlini, we want to speak to you because we want to talk about the fields and the playgrounds externally, specifically the softball field and the Furnace Wood soccer field that, a child could break an ankle on that field. Bathroom improvements, streamline the communication from the 3 elementaries. We've heard that before, so we continue to find, hopefully we can find ways together to do that. One email that's really searchable versus with attachments. More grade level interaction, lunch, recess, field trips. 2 or more field trips per year, per grade level. The only grade that received 2 field trips this year was the 5th grade for Shokin and West Point, but we hope to see that for all grades and maybe throw in a 3rd for the 5th. And the caregivers want to know about these assemblies ahead of time and these special events that are happening versus hearing about them afterwards. They want to know about it so that they can have a conversation with their child at home and ask them great questions. And that's what we're hearing. But it's been a great first year together. Really, it's probably been a super high and
it was hard,
super lows, but we're glad that we were asked to do it or elected to do it, and we're going to do it again next year.
Any questions? I hope not.
I just want to thank you for everything you do because parental engagement is key in student success. And I know how much work you put into it, so thank you. But with that said, I'm really curious, since I'm not in elementary school with my son anymore, is parental engagement now more, less, or the same as it was before? And is student participation more, less, or the same as it was before? Those are my 2 questions.
I think because we've been trying to do everything across the board equally, I feel like we have more parent engagement and student engagement because it's not one kid doing something at one building and the sibling isn't. So I've seen a lot of that there's more participation there. Volunteers, I think we have a lot of volunteers. And again, we touched a little bit about fundraising before. We're running our fundraisers across all 3 buildings. So it may not seem like it's a lot that we've raised, but when you break it up into 3, it's still there. So it's kind of the same. I think we had a lot of new volunteers this year that kind of reached out and broke their shell and felt comfortable to join a committee or speak up or give some ideas. From my end, that's what I'm sure you have as well. I mean, we have a lot of committees right now and they're organized and they're there and we have, guidelines to them now. So we're really just creating that foundation for future that, hey, this is what we've done this year. What can we do next year to make it stronger, to make it better, get input from parents, families, principals, buildings, what is popular and what is not popular, what would they like to see again or what would they like to see more of. So I think we've had that interaction this year more than the past. So I think it's great.
And I will say that, I'm going to say it's the same across the board. I would say students are engaged, and students want to be there, especially the younger ones, which is normally what happens. But I would say from a parent standpoint, and I'm speaking to all of you, please, you have an idea, we're going to ask you to implement it. Yep. We want more people, so we need more people. Because what we did this year was a big mountain, and we have another one in front of us and another one after that, and there's only so much the same people can do. So I will say it's kind of this, when you look at the 3 when they were separate, it's the same level of people. But we had some new faces when we had other faces turn over. So I would just say, if you want to, ask us and we will find a home for you. There's something you can do, absolutely.
There's something for everyone. Yeah. And, we kind of take their skills and point them in the right direction. And the good thing is we are welcoming new ideas. We want people to come and raise their hand and, you know, just take a jump at an idea or something they want to run, and we learn from it. So, and then afterwards we know, okay, what we can do differently, should we do it again? I will say that because we're doing so much and it's across the board, we have more kids. So yes, the volume of volunteers that we need is a lot more because we're running it. And I think we've done very well. I mean, when we put a call out to middle school and high school volunteers, you know, we'll have those that sign up, but then we have like 50 more at the door that didn't sign up, but they want to be engaged, they want to help, and they have a lot of family, like siblings and cousins and things, so they want to be a part of their experience as well.
Some lesson learned on our part. We'll get those requests out sooner, so they're not, you know, a week before, but more like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, a month in advance notice, so that your calendar's not booked, so you can volunteer. We know we need to do that more often.
Yeah.
Push that out there.
This year was more of, okay, this building did this building did this. What can we continue to do? What can we, you know, make bigger or add ideas to? So we did a lot of that. You know, we wanted to keep traditions, but start new things as well. And, you know, when we're not there, there will be a new board that will want to do new things and hopefully continue to do some of those really, you know, good things that we've done. So.
I just want to add my compliments to you all for what you've been doing, and thank you on behalf of the students and staff for all the work that you do. But more importantly, don't downplay. I did the math, you know, I'm good with my numbers. So $65,000 is a lot of money to raise, and I think that was my quick arithmetic here. And that you divide that by 10 months a year, and you're raising $6,500 a month. That's not small potatoes. And thank you very much for all that you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, now we're moving on to our elementary school update. We have our elementary school principals here with us, Mr. Cohen, Dr. Kramer, and Mrs. Teresi. And I don't know who's going first or if you're all coming together, but come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to present tonight on the 3 elementary schools. Just in case there is anyone out there who isn't familiar, I'm Cindy Kramer, the principal at Frank G. Lindsay School, which is our pre-K first grade building with 358 students. First slide, thank you. And I'm joined by Donna Teresi, principal at Buchanan Burplank Elementary, where there are 297 second and third graders, and Josh Cohen, principal at Furnace Woods, fourth and fifth grade building with 366 students. Next. We're going to touch on 4 areas tonight and also share some data on student achievement. Our areas of focus will be transitions, staff collaboration, SEL growth, and safety. Next slide. Thank you. First, I'm going to highlight transitions. As we started the year, many of us were in new buildings with new teachers, new staff, new students. Once we got settled and acclimated to our new settings, the 3 principals visited our former students at the other 2 elementary schools. We went during lunch and recess, so we had an opportunity to interact with the kids, say hello, ask about their year, chat, exchange hugs, and spend a little bit of quality time with them. So this slide shows kind of the timeline of events that we engaged in throughout the year with regards to transitions. Over the winter, each principal hosted 2 to 3 principal teas. Some were virtual, some were in person, and parents of all students were invited for these informal question and answer sessions. We shared a bit about ourselves, about our programs and our buildings, and they were able to ask questions about what's going on this year. This week, on Monday, our current first graders visited BV and the third graders visited Furnace Woods in preparation for next year. They had a chance to meet with their new principal, ask questions, and tour their new school. In preparation for these tours, members of our SEL staff met with these rising students at their current schools over the previous few weeks. This included the counselors and social workers from their current schools, as well as someone from next year's school. They discussed the transitions and what to expect next year, and students were able to ask questions and meet some of the staff members that they'll be working with in the future. Every year, teachers meet in June and September to share information about students with next year's teachers and these conversations will continue to take place as usual. We'll use the early release days next week and the superintendent's conference days in late August for these cross-grade level meetings and discussions. And as usual, we'll hold meet and greets in late August for all students to come to each building, meet their teacher, see their classroom, and see if there are some familiar faces in the class to make some friends before school gets started. And last but not least, to follow up on our PTA presentation, the new Hen Hud Elementary PTA did a fabulous job of assisting us with everything related to transitions this year. They had a lot of events that included all the students, such as the Fall Festival and the more recent Festival of Families that were open to all elementary students and families, and they were great opportunities for the kids to see old friends and also come together with siblings for some fun activities. So the next slide is going to be Josh talking about collaboration.
Hello everybody, I'm Josh Cohen, principal at the Furnace Woods Elementary School, grades 4 and 5. So the second area that we're proud of is the collaboration among staff. And just a little background of the times for that. At VV and Frank G. Lindsay, the entire staff has a common prep in the morning. At Furnace Woods, there's a common prep at the end of the day. During the school day, there's about 3 or 4 classes in a band that have a common prep every day. For some classes, these align with AIS staff or related service providers or special area teachers. This time is used for a variety of purposes. Every school has monthly data meetings, once for ELA, once for math, where teams look at student performance, look for trends, what's working, what can be improved, and so on. Each school also holds MTSS meetings for both academic and socio-emotional needs that arise. This is where a team consisting of mental health staff, the principal, AIS staff, related service providers, and classroom teachers discuss the specific needs of students. The team discusses goals, targeted interventions, and data that will monitor the progress of those goals. The family of the student is updated during this process as well. When thinking about what's great about this year's collaboration, the word immediacy comes to mind. In the past, grade level teachers met once a month for an hour. This year, they all have access to one another and all those experienced brains on a grade every single day. These teachers are helping expand each other's repertoires and potential strategies every day. Teachers regularly discuss curriculum, how to differentiate, tweak lessons based on what colleagues learned and planned together. So they might do a math lesson on Monday and they know their friend's doing it on Tuesday, and they talk about what worked and didn't work. This includes AIS, ENL teachers, related service providers, special area teachers, teaching assistants, all working with each other and with the grade level teachers. Teachers have shared that they would have similar conversations in the past, but it would wait until that monthly meeting. So sometimes the lessons had passed and it was too late for that current cohort, and they would regroup for the following year. Again, this year it's able to happen immediately. They're making changes within the week based on their team's feedback and collaboration. The special area teachers have done several projects connecting to grade level curriculum, extending the unit based on their ability to talk things out with their colleagues each day. Often we'll see hallway meetings where they're poking their head out, somebody else on the break. It could be about academics, a behavior consultation to best help each student then meet their needs. Teachers have flexibility in how they present and teach content, but this collaboration has really improved the consistency in what every sailor is taught. There's also some informal relationship building that we're seeing. Staff having lunch together, walking around, just growing together and talking shop while they have a good time with one another. Finally, all of our special education services offered on our district's continuum are housed in each building. Students have access to all programs and supports. For example, we have several twins in the district where one is in a general education setting and the other has an IEP and maybe in a co-teach setting. They are now able to have the same experience in the same school together. The staff focuses on 2 grade levels has also helped narrow their focus during professional development meetings, staff gatherings, and so on. They reach out to colleagues in other buildings as needed, maybe when a student's falling further behind or maybe when they need to be pushed even further ahead. Next up, Dr. Kramer is going to be talking about socio-emotional growth, and our mental health team recently complimented our observant and attentive teaching assistant aides and teachers who are pinpointing when they notice students in distress, sharing who needs that extra support and attention, and who may need to see our mental health team. Often this is noticed as they arrive off the bus or when the parents drop them off, and they're under the care of our teaching assistants in either the gym, auditory, or outside. So kudos to everybody and paying attention to our students.
So SEL refers to social emotional learning. We have an amazing elementary SEL team who works together across all 3 elementary schools and also with the middle school and high school to support our students and their families. There's at least one full-time SEL staff member in each elementary school, and these include social workers, school counselors, and psychologists. Some of the staff is shared between multiple buildings. Our multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, includes members of the SEL team along with teachers, administrators, and related service providers. We hold regular data meetings, as Josh talked about, and also SEL-focused team meetings to focus on students who may not have academic needs, but perhaps they need some help emotionally or behaviorally in the classroom, and the team meets to discuss those needs and brainstorm solutions to some things that might arise. As we move to Princeton Plan this year, our SEL team has really been focusing with the students on helping them to build friendships and adjust to change. And this support comes in a variety of forms, which are listed on the right, and those include counseling, lunch bunch groups, team meetings, conversations and discussions with parents, and building level groups. The building level groups are really created based on the needs of the students, and they provide support in a variety of areas that are related to building friendships and adjusting to change. Some of these might include friendship skills, social skills, family challenges such as divorce, anxiety, coping skills, dealing with big, strong feelings, self-regulation, self-control, and self-esteem. And again, these groups are typically formed on an as-needed basis, and they could vary from building to building and even from month to month as to what's offered. Risk and threat assessment, which is listed on the bottom, that's the data, back to the last one, thanks. It shows the number of risk and threat assessments that have been done at each of the elementary schools. And what this means is if a student does something that raises an alarm with a staff member, maybe they draw a picture of a weapon or they say something that might be perceived as a threat to themselves or to others, then the SEL team would step in. And they follow a specific protocol to assess the student's needs and to determine whether or not the threat is founded and needs to be addressed in a specific manner. So based on this assessment, additional resources and support may be provided to the student. And of course, parents of the student are always involved in that process. So those numbers there indicate how many threat or risk assessments were implemented in each of the 3 elementary schools this year. Thanks. Oh, one more thing before I turn it over to Donna, sorry. It is important to differentiate between behavioral issues and SEL issues. So behavior issues might include fighting, students arguing, calling each other names, accusations of bullying, things like that. These are addressed by the teachers and the principals, depending on the severity of the issue. Our goal is always to help the student learn from their mistakes and to help them make better decisions in the future. We refer to the district code of conduct, and there's a range of consequences depending on the age of the child, the severity of the incident, and whether or not there's been a pattern of similar behaviors in the past. We may consult with the SEL staff during this process and may engage their services as needed, but behavioral concerns are typically addressed by the administration and the teachers. And Donna's going to talk about safety.
Hi everyone, for those that don't know me because of my voice, I'm Donna Teresi. I'm the principal of Buchanan Brook Elementary School. I think it makes me sound a little bit more important. I'm liking the voice. Well, my topic this evening is safety. And I cannot thank the board and Mr. Molini enough for the amount of time and effort and the safety team has placed on development of plans in this district this year. The improvements that we have made on making sure that Narcan is accessible in our buildings, our lock boxes are in place, we are having tabletops with Alteris is amazing. We are on the front now more than we've ever been before. These are important and critical with the ever-changing times that we're seeing in our district. Yes, we have our traditional fire drills. We've had our traditional lockdowns. But now, our county, our state police, our EMTs are continuously in our buildings. They're doing our drills. They're using our lockdown process. And they are critically critiquing how we're performing on these drills. Children now, we have the buttons we pushed, and they're hearing it firsthand, the lockdown. And it's becoming more and more. We're not here to scare children. We're here to keep them safe. And I think right now, Alteris, Amanda, and Frank are doing an amazing job to keep us on the cutting edge of what we're doing now. No holds barred. Right now, tomorrow, for example, we have a reunification practice where if there's an unfortunate situation, how do we get our children back to the arms of their parents in the quickest, safest methods? So we'll be going through a drilling practice in my building as they have done in the other buildings also. So that's the last piece. They also assess the area of the buildings, looking for what kind of cameras we're going to be adding, what kind of sound systems too that need to be addressed in certain areas that have also improved our ability in response time to these practices that we're having. The threat assessment training that we were given was right down and dirty. It showed our staff how so many simple words need to be looked at and examined. Things that we may have taken lightly along the line, we may be now be a little bit more attuned to. We look forward to September also addressing with Alteris that threat assessment and renewing that faculty-wide in September. We are looking also, as they had given us, questions, things that we want to use as a drill down when we speak to our students. So as they move from K through the 12th grade, there's a continuity between the staff members as we address the students that we need to make sure that we are assisting the SEL programs or maybe outside agencies that require additional help with the math. Right now at FGL, BV, and Furnace Woods, you could see the people that are trained as of now for Narcan, which is also astounding. We'll continue the Alteris tabletop, and I did get word, thank you again, that we are going to be having CRG, which is a critical response group, looking at really clarifying the mapping of the buildings, which is really important because remember, I know the building, but in critical times, I may not be able to go into the building when things are happening. Well, that's what they say, but I don't think that's going to happen. But it's a great visual where anybody in a crisis situation will be able to access and identify every aspect of that building if they were walking in blind. And that's very critical. Again, thank you. And Mr. Malini. And once again, I cannot thank, I'm going to say it again, the officers in this area who know what a community is and care about our kids and are walking our buildings every day alongside our SROs who are also there. So thank you so much. And that's safety.
Okay, on to student data. So first, we're going to show a chart that shows all the grades, and then we'll break it down into smaller pieces so it's a little easier to read. The first set of data we have is for our F&P benchmark assessments. The F&P is a reading assessment that's administered by a teacher to one student at a time. It assesses reading fluency and accuracy as well as comprehension. Students are asked to retell the story and answer literal as well as inferential questions. All students who are not alternately assessed participate in these benchmark assessments 3 times a year, and this includes students who receive support services and students whose first language is not English. Next chart. So here's my data from kindergarten and first grade. The first column shows current enrollment by grade, and then the next 2 columns show the proficiency, the percentage of students who scored at the proficient level, on the spring benchmark of F&P for the previous 2 school years. And then the middle column shows the 3 benchmarks for this year for kindergarten and first grade. Kindergarten does not get administered the F&P assessment in the fall because most of the kindergartners aren't able to read in the fall. They're still learning their numbers and letters. That handful that does come in reading, the teacher may give them an F&P just to see where they are to help guide their instruction, but we don't include that in our fall data. As you look at the chart, you can see the difference between the winter benchmark and the spring benchmark for kindergarten, and between the fall, the winter, and the spring for first grade, and the progress that the students made. So that middle column shows students who scored at grade level or on grade level or above. The next column over shows students who are 1 reading level below, which means they're approaching the grade level. So they could be just about there, or they may have a little ways to go. And that information, again, guides instruction for the teacher. And the final column shows students who qualify for reading support. So at kindergarten, that's students who are 1 level below where we would expect them to be. That's why there's zeros in the approaching column for kindergarten, because if at kindergarten we see they're 1 level below, the levels are so close together, we start at A and go up to D, hopefully by the end of kindergarten, that we want to get those kids support as soon as possible. And then from first grade up, if they're 2 reading levels, not grade levels, sorry, 2 reading levels or more below, we look at whether or not they require additional reading support outside of the classroom. Okay, and I think that's, yeah. So Josh and Donna are going to talk about their data for the F&P.
So as you're going to see in front of you is also our 2nd, 3rd grade. F&P is given directly the same way as it is in the kindergarten, 1st grade. We have the 3 benchmarks definitely at 2nd and 3rd grade level. But please pay attention to the fact that yes, we are increasing our improvements, but as we look at in the spring and other things areas where some of the students require additional reading support, please keep in mind too, your gen ed and special ed programs are both in there. They do take that data, and we've had a huge influx in the spring. So when you're also looking at data, it's also important to delve into the fact that some of the children that are being tested in the spring, where your numbers may come up a little bit for needing assistance, have not been our students. For example, we've had 15 children enter within the past 6 weeks, but we will be testing those students. So we do have a good pattern. If you look at it, almost 80% of our students are doing quite well. We still have like a 20%, but there are some special education students, and there are some of our newly students that are also in there that we still assess, even to see even the limitations that they may have as they're coming into a new school district, even into a new country. Any questions?
Okay, so now 4th and 5th grade, and I won't really read it all to you, but if we look at where they're at now, you could see 60% were proficient in the fall, and it moved up to 70% in spring. In the 5th grade, it started at 55% and went up to 68%. At our recent elementary administrative meeting, Dr. Laurel had asked just to share if you had removed the special ed students and ENL, which are both in the approaching on grade level, but we took them out, and it does go up, for instance, in 4th and 5th grade by 10%. So the proficiency would go up 10%, and the qualified for reading support would go down by about 10%. So that's 4th and 5th grade, and then Mrs. Teresi is going to explain iReady.
iReady is our 2nd assessment that we use elementary K through 5. This is a different type of assessment. Not only is it assessing, but it's ongoing throughout the year for instructional purposes. It also provides the teacher itself with actually an itemization of each student and where they fall in the specific areas of iReady. ELA has their 5 components, sorry, my voice, phonemic awareness, literacy skills,
both realistic and nonfiction and fiction. So students are actually, you'll get one student and you'll actually see where the students scored in all those 5 components on iReady and how they perform. The program also groups children, so a teacher can use that information for guided reading to provide the actual skills and strategies that the child needs in small group instructions. So it's an ongoing, it's just not a 3 times take it and then that's it with it. It's also taken in the classroom during the time. And they could go home and use it. And studies have shown that if you use it for 45, 40 minutes, 30 minutes every other day, that the scores would increase. Students that have showed benefit progress from the program. So as you go to the iReady slides, iReady ELA data. This is kindergarten, so this is, she'll say.
So the labels for these columns are a little different than for the FMP because iReady groups the students differently and scores them differently. So we still have the current enrollment and the proficiency rates for the previous 2 years and the 3 benchmarks for this year. But when iReady looks at the differences between students who are proficient and those who are not, it goes by grade level. So the 1 year below grade level could be students who are just shy of meeting those grade level expectations, all the way to students who are truly 12 months behind. And then it goes to 2 or more years below grade level, which would again be another large span. So as Donna explained, there's different pieces to the iReady that the program breaks down for the teachers so they can drill down to those finer pieces of phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, vocabulary, and see where each student needs specific work and form their groupings. The final column, which is the confusing one, is titled Progress to Annual Typical Growth. I'm going to read this very carefully. So iReady predicts, based on student performance, how much growth each child is expected to make over the course of the school year. This column indicates the average amount of growth made by students on the grade level towards this expected goal. So on average, kindergarten students made 117% of their expected growth, and first graders made 143% of their expected growth. So you can see from fall, they started off with 17% proficient, and in spring it went up to 76%. But those students, on average, made 143% of their expected growth, which is quite amazing over the school year. And all grade levels exceeded expectations with over 100% of growth towards their typical, progress towards their typical growth.
So as Cindy explained, as you look at also the 2nd, 3rd grade, we had a great amount of growth also with 136% and 127. They exceeded the expectations of where they were supposed to be doing and where they were supposed to be going. We're still focusing again on one area specifically as I drill down in 2nd and 3rd grade, and that's the comprehension overall. That we still need a little bit and we're falling a little shy in. But as far as the phonemic awareness, the phonological awareness, and the high frequency words, we're doing strong. We've kicked it, and Words Their Way has also helped with this program also. Another program that we've implemented, every student is getting. It's a program based on the student. The student is taking an assessment individually with the teacher, and then the teacher again makes subgroups. So where the students should be attacking certain skills. Not everybody's getting the same traditional spelling words. They're getting the actual phonics skills that they need. And with that, we've seen a marked improvement, both in the iReady, both with the FMP data, and with those 3 pieces, we're able to get a better read of our students. So as we could see in the 2nd and 3rd grade, in the spring, in the fall, we went from a 30 proficient to a 62% efficiency. And also 1 year below could be a little bit of a tweak because we increased more in the proficiency, it dropped a little bit down. Only leaving in spring to off 5% of our students in 2nd grade needing additional help. So that was really great. So we're looking at this year overall with everything, which we were trying to put our AIS groups again together using the data that we've gotten today. We're looking at 11 students in second grade getting AIS help, which is phenomenal after starting with 35 children. So we've dropped down this year, quite remarkably, using these programs.
I'm just going to elaborate a little bit before I start with what Dr. Kramer was saying earlier. So the proficient is one category, then 1 year below grade level. And what they do is they lump everyone in there. So if you are 1 day before the proficiency, you're in that category. If you are 11 months behind, you're still in that category. So there is a wide range within the 1 year below grade level, and the same thing for 2 or more years below. You could be 2 years, you could be 7 years, no, that's a high number, but anything beyond that is in the same category. So just trying to help with some of the math. And also progress to annual typical growth. Sometimes it helps when you're explaining it to use money. So if you wanted to make $1,000 and you make 150% progress, you're going to make that plus half of that as well. So you're making like a year and a half's growth, or what you wanted and a half. But I know if you're not using this language, it's a little tricky. So at Furnace Woods, the fall started with 34%, and in spring moved up to 58%. And if you look at the 2 or more years below grade level, started at 22%, was able to get that down to 14%. And in grade 5, started at 27%, moved it up to 46%. And in the fall, they started with 45%, 2 or more years below, and all the way down to 30%. And that last column, there was very high growth, 140 and 152% of where students were able to push beyond that target. So we're going to do this one more time, but now for math.
Okay. So the math chart is set up the same exact way as the ELA chart. It's still iReady data, but it's for math achievement as opposed to the ELA achievement. So you can go to the next one. Thanks. And math also looks at various components such as number sense, algebraic expressions, computation, geometry. Those are just a few of the areas that are looked at and that the teachers can drill down to using the iReady data to best address the needs of each student. So again, we see the growth from fall to spring, and then the last column, which is the average typical progress towards growth. So you could see for kindergarten, we started with 26% of the students at proficient, going up to 78 this spring, and for first grade, 9% of the students tested at proficient and went up to 64% in the spring, with 141 as the progress towards growth for first grade, 141%. Donna?
Like Cindy said, there's the 4 measurements: the number operations, the algebraic thinking, measurement geometry, and data. If you look at second grade, we have a lot to celebrate. We started with proficiency of 13% and jumped to 65% on the proficiency, leaving 2 or more years below down to 6%. Again, everyone in that building is measured. Nothing is segregated. So we do have students that need additional academic assistance in a special education program. But yet, even though numbers, even our special education programs, they also close gaps also with our students. If you also look again at the third grade, we went from a 15% start to now a 58% finish. Also 1 year below, again, like they have explained before, Cindy and Josh, it could be just a hair off or 2. And we did see that. We also look sometimes too, the curriculum changed a little bit with the new series. So it adjusted a little bit where geometry came out earlier this year. And we superseded in geometry earlier, where geometry used to fall later on in the year. So we saw some play in iReady. But we got the great data that we got at the final, which is very nice, with a very low AIS piece. Next year, 0.
Okay, and for 4th grade, they started the year with 26% of the students at proficiency level and ended the year with 71%. In 5th grade, 46% up to 54%. And again, what was great from every student at BV, Frankie, and Furnace Woods, the average for all students in each school was over 100%. So again, 4th and 5th, we're at 122% and 120%. So with that, back to Mrs. Teresi.
As I've been interjecting, we've been injecting throughout the whole night. This data is huge. In fact, today we spent 2 hours with our data teams going through planning our schedules for next year. How are we going to group children, create equity in the classroom, but yet diminish the amount of times that the children are being pulled out, trying to lump students together that can go out together, but not as frequently in one lump sum. We are trying to hold to 90 minutes of ELA next year and 90 minutes of interrupted math also. If we also use the data to examine our bridge programs. We implemented, due to COVID, a bridge program where students were getting an additional AIS services. We saw children come out of the bridge program, leave the bridge program, come out of AIS, and restore themselves back to a gen ed. These were mostly students that were more on homeschool instruction, really couldn't hear the sounds through the look of an internet. It just didn't work as well. So for those students, we really, really helped by increasing them. We worked in the bridge programs with a lot more Wilson, which was more intensified for 60 minutes, and then worked with the children for an additional 30 minutes in comprehension. As it started to move, we lessened the Wilson and increased the comprehension. That's what the data is about. That's what we're using for. AIS programs cannot be the same from year to year, even from the same year. They have to mold and change with the information that we're getting through these iReady programs and the data from the teachers that are keeping that. Those MTS teams are important. We meet bi-monthly, 1 week for ELA and 1 week for math. And with those meetings, we're talking to our teachers. What students are struggling? What strategies have you had? Try to do these strategies. We have actually brought parents in to be helpers with the strategies that we're implementing, and they are working. So these programs that we use, these FMPs, iReadies, have been very instrumental in driving what we've added as programs into this building. We have created coaches, we've done walkthroughs where we have teachers visiting other people's classrooms where we see some data is a little low, and we'll say, go visit this classroom. Go see their writing and reading workshop, see their conversations, help build out your literacy response on nonfiction. This teacher has it, and they do welcome that. This all helps in supporting the strategic plan that we have laying ahead of us, and we're trying to encompass whatever is being brought to us through that plan, and with that, hoping to rise the performance that we have for our students. The role of our support services, like I said, especially in the 2nd, 3rd grade, it is critical that we are the cleanup crew because we want to send them off to 4 or 5 where they have a good foundation of reading and writing, and the K1, a good phonemic awareness. That helps us build the comprehension to lead them forward. So with us as working as a team and sharing our data, we are able to try to eliminate as much as we can. Eventually, hopefully in the future, we will have data that will show you cohort as they travel through our district. So you could see kids who are in our district for 3 solid years and the performance that they're getting from these programs. Right now you have everybody, and it's been a little bit more fun with the COVID and everybody being everywhere else. But hopefully now you'll be seeing and watching the cohorts that they travel from 4th grade to 5th grade and the progress they've been making. That's where we present the data next. Thank you.
Okay, and our final slide was the key area and ultimate goal that we all have. That is continued improvement of student achievement. So we really want to set teachers up for success because a lot of this growth that we're seeing is, conferring. They're meeting with children one-on-one or in small groups and rotating frequently to give them feedback about what's going well, how to extend their thinking. So we want that to continue to happen. As Mrs. Teresi just shared, we're looking to have those uninterrupted blocks for both literacy and math and limit those pullouts. So if you're in 2nd and 3rd grade, we want you to be with your 2nd and 3rd grade teacher as much as possible without interruptions. Let's see, one exception may be AIS reading or math, so we don't want them to miss the new lesson, but if it's a small group time, that may happen, but again, we try to do everything else to avoid that, and that would be the worst case scenario. This also includes how we're able to schedule support services and when it's helpful to either push in versus pull out. We're looking at various ways to schedule groups, and it may vary from building to building based on the developmental needs of the students, but the key theme is protecting instructional time in that classroom to continue to improve proficiency rates. For example, in the older grades, elementary students who sign up for band and orchestra are pulled out at various times from various subjects. After several meetings together, we decided that we're going to start group sizes at 9 to have fewer pullouts each day from the 4th and 5th grade classrooms and to have less conflicts with AIS, ENL, related service providers, and so on. Also on the slide, we're currently discussing the pros and challenges of departmentalization. However, there's no final update. Everyone has tried it at each school, and again, there's different feedback depending on the year, the cohort, and pros and cons on each. But it's just an example of something we're exploring. The other areas that are up here on this slide have been discussed earlier by all of us, and we will continue to enhance and focus on them so that all student needs are met, whether it's remediation or enrichment. It includes database targeted instruction, multiple assessments to determine next steps in planning instruction so that they're met, and finally, as Dr. Kramer mentioned earlier with the upcoming grade level transition communication meetings, we will continue working together with vertical alignment across the grades and continuing to help with transition planning from year to year. That's it from the three of us.
I have a question. Okay, we did. You do it.
No.
Okay,
Well, I
reading those questions.
So I just have one question. On the iReady math data for the 4th and 5th grade, there's a discrepancy in the percentages that you show when you break it down into the 2-year span of 4 and 5 only versus the same data that you show in the K through 5 chart. So if you look so just for an example, right, in the iReady math data in the chart that's K through 5, it says that the fall proficiency in 22-23 is 26%, but when you go to the 2-year breakdown, it says it's 46%. And then the winter and the spring are the same. And then when you go to the fall, 1 year below grade level, it says 46%, but in the 2-year breakdown, it says 39, and then the next two are the same. And then 15, 20, and 18, which shows an increase in kids needing support, but on the other side, it shows a large decrease, 32. It just looks like that top line is off. Which one's right?
Yes, I can get back to you with the exact one. We had the group grade chart, and we cut and paste a lot of times to have them blown out into grade banded, so there might have been an error, so I'm happy to get back with the exact one.
I appreciate it. Thank
no
you.
problem.
Greg, can you bring up slide 12 for me? I'm not sure if I'm reading this correct. Are you on slide 12? Oh, help me understand this because I'm not sure if I'm reading it right. If I'm a kindergartner in 21, 22, and I'm at 85%, why this year I'm a first grader, I'm now at 76%? If I'm a first grader here
at 62%. Next year, I'm at the same 62. I have no growth. Here I'm 60. I have growth here. I'm 70. Here at third grade, I'm 74, but now I'm decreased to 58 my next year. Fourth grade, 21, 22, I'm 46. No growth at fifth grade. Like, I'm just looking at the numbers there. So, am I reading it right or am I reading it wrong?
Yes, you are reading it correctly. So there could be a variety of factors, and it's hard to tell exactly what those might be without digging down further into the data. What's the matter?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Go here to here.
So at the beginning of every school year, the students are assessed based on the end of year standards in the current year. So it won't track that way. I know what you're trying to do, Steph. We do that with the New York State test scores. You can't do it with iReady because they changed the standards. When I come into first grade, I'm now assessed, what do I know in the fall based on the end of year grade 1 expectation.
So, how would I, as a parent, or even as a board member, would I look at this data and see that there's growth or there's not growth?
Wait, can I jump in real quick? Because
they
I don't
haven't
think that, I think
If I understand her question, it's a little different. I don't think she's asking to compare the spring of 22 to the fall of 22.
I'm not.
I think she's asking to compare the spring of 22 to the spring of 23.
I'm going to
So
give it back.
end of year grade data for how you finish at the end of kindergarten and how you finish at the end of first grade.
Yeah.
Is that right, Steph?
Yeah,
Steph, I wanna speak
that's
to you.
exactly what I'm talking. I'm looking here, right, to here. 85, 76, 62,
Correct.
66.
I misunderstood what you were asking.
No, but 60,
But-
70, 74, 58, 46, 46. I'm just,
So what you're asking us is, I'm a second grade.
I'm a kindergarten.
No, kindergarten, and they finished at 65%. And then they go to first grade and they get 63%. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
You want to know how they change from year to year? They go down.
yeah,
Right.
why do they trend
That's
down?
what I initially had said. First of all, we need to start looking at cohorts. Our district has become a little bit more transient than it's ever been before. So you're not always dealing with the same amount of kids and the same amount of special ed kids and the same amount of ENL kids. That's going to play a lot on numbers. Even if, especially with population and small number decreases and increases, that's going to change your data. So it is always better sometimes to really be very clear and consistent. Some districts, what they do is they extract the same students and present them across the cohorts. That's what I said to you that we need to start to show you, is the same Mike, Jane, and Bobby and how they travel. And say, look, this is how they did it as a whole. This is how they did it. This is how they did it with 6 months in, and after 6 months we had 20 new kids enter, and this is how they did. So you really understand. That's really looking deep into the data. So when we're at a building level, we're tearing every kid apart. I'm opening every F&P. I'm opening every iReady score on every child. And I'm watching them through the year as they move through the 6 pieces and the 4 pieces in the math, sorry. That's where you get to know each child and its student, and that's how I can address the parent. That's how I say to the parent, here's where they are, this is what they're being tested on, this is how well they did on the material they should know, this is where they have to go, and this is where they'll be hopefully when they move in. And there's your stretch that will also be able to show the parent that they did, and the expected growth, typical growth they were supposed to have. It is also up to us to look at that iReady and say, oh my goodness, they tested our kids in geometry, but guess what? I didn't teach it yet. So that too is a big thing also when you're giving. You just can't just give this test and just say, here's 77%. There's much more to it. but that's what we need to do in the next phase of the data.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this presentation at home,
Right.
and I want to judge where we were with neighborhood schools, which I really can't by using these years, because we're not going back, we're using COVID years, which are dismal for testing. So how would a parent at home use this data to say, hey, look at how much better we're doing, or are we not doing better? Because I can't really tell from this data anything really.
Right, but if you're also looking too, like as to the kids that are to the right where it says the 2 to 3 years, the grade levels, you'll see in the fall to the spring, there's a drop. See, I'm just using my data because I know it. In fall, I had 23% of my students requesting some need of assistance. My AIS dropped to 5%. That's minimum. That's when I was saying to you, I have 32 kids in the AIS. Those 32 kids are out, and now I only have 5% of them left. That is doing quite well because those students, look at the numbers that dropped. If you look at the fall and then the spring data, yes, we're at 30%, as Margaret says. They're testing also what we need to do, but 62% is also where they are now, and then some of that on 1 year below. Like I said, some of those kids, 1 or 2 points, they would have been knocked into that situation. I hear what you're saying. Well, then you're saying 30%. We don't know what the cohort was. We don't know what the change was. That, again, it takes a lot more to drill down and explain this, and a lot more breaking down of the data.
Dennis, since you are a superintendent, if you look at this data, would you say that we are performing well, we're above average, we're middle of the road? Like, because I think parents are looking for guidance.
It's hard to make it in isolation when we don't have other data from other, because we're using iReady and not sure everybody else uses iReady. So that's why we use the state data, because we all are taking the same testing. So what I would like to see is more 90% up there in terms of growth at the end of the year. And so we'll have to drill down and look at what we can do better in order to improve. We're on the right track. We're trending in most cases upwards, and what do we need to do that extra push to get us there?
I have a question. The fifth grade specifically across the board, it's on. The fifth grade specifically across the board is at the highest level of AIS, I think in reading and ELA, and their percentages of children that are 2 years behind grade level is much higher than the other grade levels. Is there a reason for that specifically that we can think of?
So the former PPS director gave a good example. So if you're paving the road and you have a little gap in the knowledge or learning, the paver keeps going. Another gap comes, so you're constantly catching up. And over time, if we don't close that gap, it becomes harder and harder to catch up. What I would say about the iReady, because we were just talking about iReady, is again, there's other variables that factor in. Number one, it's not necessarily, so if you have 169 in first grade, when you get that same measurement in second grade, it may not be 169. It may not be those very same 169 students. So as Mrs. Teresi said earlier, it's important to look at Dr. Loro to Dr. Loro, and follow the same child over time. The other thing is we're noticing that the iReady takes them a lot longer as the tests get longer in older grades, and we do see some fatigue, and people start clicking and kind of lose their steam for it, especially towards the second half. So these are all things that we're trying to build up and maybe chunk it differently, things of that nature. So, and we've spoken to, the middle school, and this is not an uncommon thing as they get older, and their attitudes towards testing are a factor as well that we're fighting.
But we know right now, looking at the data from the middle school and high school, that as these children are getting older, those gaps are growing. So we need to make sure that we are monitoring this, because
we're seeing it already in our elementary school right now, and we know that what the high school and the middle school currently look like. I mean, we're so behind in 9th grade and 8th grade that we're looking at doing iReady for our 9th and 10th graders. So what I think we have to make sure that we're, yeah, I understand your analogy there, but we have to make, that's a major difference. And the other thing I'm going to comment on is the end. So the qualifies for what the last
Can I
column
just
you
jump
guys
in for a
have
sec,
here.
just about the data, if you don't
No.
mind?
Yep.
And then you can go to that. So that's kind of why we decided as a district, we really want to protect that instructional time. Some of our 5th graders are in and out of their classrooms several times a week, and if the teachers can't work with them in small groups, one-on-one to meet those gaps and those needs, that's part of the challenge. We're always playing catch-up. So we really want to make sure they're able to access the instruction that our excellent teachers and teaching assistants are providing to everybody, and that's currently a challenge. So that's why one of the goals is to revisit those protected times and the master schedule.
Could I just add to that too? I mean, one of the things I found from my own observation of visiting the classrooms, I was out looking at the people that were up for tenure. So I ran into it a number of times, and we had a conversation about an observation, exactly that point. I remember watching a class where at the beginning, students were taken out for lessons, and then right in the middle, somebody else walked in and took them out for something else. And by the time that teacher was teaching at the end, the class that started with 20, say 6 or so in there might have been 18 now. And that happens all the time. And that's when I went on and said, we really need to look at what we're doing. And so part of the correction that we've taken this last quarter has been to make those 90-minute blocks sacred in ELA and math. And going forward next year, we're getting resistance because people are used to the old way. And we're not trying to take away from anybody else's program, but we need to be respectful, like most places, that ELA and math, which are the 2 major points for not only testing and assessments, but they're the backbone of any other courses you take going on to college or to high school in terms of having those skill sets. And so doing that and making them without a break in them, we hope to help improve. It'll make life a lot easier for the teacher who's constantly reteaching some of the skills because another student comes back in, another student comes back in, and they miss part of it. So I think we'll see a difference. We are correcting things.
And then, where you say the progress to annual typical growth, like, that doesn't really mean much without what it looked like last year at this time, right? I mean, there's nothing to compare that to, the percentages.
So that number tells us the growth students made this year. So we could compare it to the growth that was made in previous years. Yeah, we could go back and look at that data if you wanted to see if there was a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for that to really be meaningful
Right.
in this context, I think you'd need to see that. I'm sitting here and this is great and there's a lot of information here, but is this meant to be the metrics presentation that we were providing for the principal plan implementation? That's what I was wondering. Because if that is, then we're missing a lot of our data points.
No, this was part of it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. There's more. But we want to do that at the time we get to the other end, into September when those
Okay,
other
I just wanted to
points
make sure that
will be
everyone, I
proved.
wanted to make sure the community was clear
Right
on
now,
that.
this is based on what we normally do is benchmark data against our F&P and the iReady.
Yeah, because we had said
We had other
present it by
metrics.
June, we said we would present it as board goal by June 30th. And I know that there's data missing from here that we had in our metrics. So I just wanted to point that out.
What I was going to do was take this and cross-reference that and then come up with what do we still need.
Okay, that's fine. And then at some point, we need to compare ourselves to other neighboring districts and see where we are. Because otherwise, what are we shooting for? What's our goals? And we've never really done that here. And I think it's important and it's part of our board training that we're supposed to review our data and compare our students to neighboring students and then even up to the state level. And then there's a suggestion that we should be looking nationally. So how do we get there? and I guess that would be a K-12 issue. And then I hear about, we're hearing about the grade level collaboration, but we haven't really heard too much about how the vertical collaboration. So that was my...
Let me just add one thing. One piece of the data that is common in all school districts, like it or not, is the national data as well as the state testing that gets reported to the federal government. So there you can make, and that's what they use to compare school districts. Not everybody uses these same tests.
We'd have to find out.
So we'd have to go to the company to say who's got matching data, and then we'd have to look in the area and apply it. Although iReady is pretty popular, I'm going to say there will be a number of them. I won't be all of them, and it may not be the ones you want, but many of the districts use iReady.
Yeah, whoever would like to go. You go. I already went, so I'll wait. Jen?
Go to Ellie first.
Yes, no, just somebody. Go. Good. I don't have it.
Okay, so first I want to say thank you. This is the best elementary school report we've gotten to date. So I really appreciate the effort that went into it. I understand that that always needs to be relooked at, and sometimes mistakes are made or things are omitted, and we'll go back. But I think for the most part, data looks really good. So thank you for that. From what I can see in this, there is a good story around improvement of students, which is great. But at the end game, we're still below the target proficiency that we want to be at, if I'm understanding this correctly. So the one thing I really would love to see in this presentation, which I don't think I got, was what didn't go right this year, what were the problems that we had, and what are we doing about them. So I understand, the story is good, we're using the data to, adjust how we're meeting the needs of the students, but what I haven't heard is what didn't go right and how are we going to fix that. And I see some generalizations about plans, but not a lot of specifics. So I think, I'm not going to be here next time, but I would love as someone who is in the audience to hear more about what are we doing to fix things. I would really love to hear that. I would love to see a presentation on that, and not just at the elementary level, but also at the middle school and the high school. But I want to commend you again for a great presentation, for the fact that we are making great progress with the students, that they're moving in the right direction. It sounds like there's a lot more data here than we've had in the past that we're actually using. So, thank you for that. So I appreciate it.
I just have a couple questions. So my first question is on the transitions piece. This is our first year moving from Princeton to Princeton, the grade banded model. And I know that there's a lot of concern in the community about what the transition looks like. So I used to be a student, there was 4 sections in my school. I went from one grade to the next, and chances are I knew a lot of kids in my next class. So I think there's concern out there about now I'm a little bit diluted. I'm going from one section to another section, and there might be 9, 8, however many sections there are. Is there a formula that you're using? How will children have familiar faces in the room? Is there going to be a guarantee of 1, 2, 5? How will we move the kids from one grade to the next in this school year so that the children aren't like, oh, I don't have any friends in the room, or I don't know any of these children. And it's great to meet new kids, right? That's a big upside here, but I do think that the children also like to keep those friendships going and, see them in the classroom where they have familiarity in a new environment, school, room, whatever it is.
Can I ask one of you to I know, go ahead, Cindy, come on. I'm going to just preface it by saying, I sort of know the answer, but I want to see what you're going to say. I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but the priority isn't the familiar faces. Thank you. Okay, you're going to say what I was going to say, which is you got to look at it from other data points, and then hopefully we've got those mixes.
Right.
But go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors that go into the placement process, and the ultimate goal is to meet the needs of each child academically, socially, and emotionally, so that they're happy, content, and able to learn while they're at school, and make a good match with the teacher that's going to help them to do that. So we have, as we've been working on placement, definitely tried to make sure that there are at least one or two familiar faces in the classroom, not necessarily a best friend, because that might not be the best work partner for somebody. And we've had several of these conversations with parents this year who say, oh, I want so-and-so with, so-and-so. Well, that sounds great, but when they're in class, they might be a distraction to each other, or they might not work well together for whatever reason, but they can be together at recess and, at other grade level events. So we do want children to have a familiar face or two, but we also want them to be in the best learning environment for them. And there's a lot of factors, like I said, and like Dr. Laura mentioned, that will go into that. So I've said to my teachers, please don't isolate anybody so that they don't have anybody from their current class with them as they move forward. But the academic piece is really what's most important and what's the best learning environment for each student.
And I'm assuming that's definitely the practice of the past as well. It's just now
Exactly.
you're moving from
It's a bigger
one.
goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question was on.
Wait, can I just ask a quick
Yeah.
question on that
Totally.
on that topic? So
Yeah.
with respect to, you said, like for recess, now in several of the buildings there's multiple recess. So are you
Right.
now going to be playing a factor on which groups go to recess when? Because you can't mix the classrooms up, put a whole bunch of kids with a whole bunch of new faces, and if you're not sort of tracking who is with who and when and where, how are you going to ensure that they have a recess time together as well? It sounds like a pretty complicated bit
Yeah,
of planning. So we're
right.
either not going to be doing that, or we're going to be putting in a lot of extra work to do that. I'm just curious if that's been part, not used, but
Sure.
collectively part of
Absolutely.
the conversation.
Absolutely. So clearly that recess isn't necessarily part of the equation unless there's special circumstances. Twins, for example, we tried to keep in the same recess pod this year when parents requested that. That made sense. But moving forward, that would be much, much too complicated. But the teachers are also aware of making time for grade level gatherings. So they'll do extra recess together, once a week when the weather's nice, so they can go out for 15 minutes or so all together as a grade level and see their friends that they might not get to see on a daily basis. This year, in first grade, I had 3 sections of lunch. Next year, I'll have 2 sections. So there might be a little more opportunity for the kids to mix and mingle during recess when they're, as opposed to this year where the 3 pods couldn't really intermingle because it was 3 separate times. But if one group's at recess and the other's at lunch and then they're switching, we might be able to work out some special days where they all have lunch at the same time and they'll have recess at the same time. We just have to see if that works with the cafeteria and stuff. So definitely thinking about those things and trying to be creative and make sure that kids have opportunities to see all of their friends as much as possible.
Sure. My other question was under the SEL growth. I just wanted to ask the risk threat assessment numbers. I'm assuming that those are typical by age. So there's 5 at FGL, 3 at BB, and then you have 21 at Furnace Woods. But that's obviously indicative of 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, go ahead. We anticipated this one.
Yes.
I mean, I think I know the answer.
So yes, because we spoke to the middle school and high school, and it does increase exponentially. So I did get a sense without specifics. The risk ones are self-injury, thoughts of not wanting to be alive or suicidal, comments, drawings, and then the threat assessments is statements of wanting to cause injuries to others, pictures with death-related injuries. So, and there are many times where it doesn't rise to this level, where the mental health team does an assessment and it doesn't. So there's a lot more, but these are the ones that rose to the level that we were tracking. The other thing, I just want to go back to the 2 other things you brought up. There are a lot of eyes on placement. So the mental health team who knows that there are challenges looks at placement, related service providers, special areas. Lots of eyes look at placement before it gets finalized. That's why it takes the end of August to give it out to everybody. We're constantly looking over it all summer long, reviewing the parent feedback and family letters that we've received, talking to teachers. So it is a very thorough process the whole summer. And then other things, for example, like Fun Fridays. People take their grades out and they can go wherever they want. So even if it's not in the recess or lunch period, there are many things that have been done to bring everybody together.
On that,
Are you going to 2 lunch groupings next year as well? Or how are the kids eating at the...
In 4th grade we are, because the sections are down and the numbers are down. In 5th grade, Dr. Laura and I have been working creatively with Mrs. Carey to see what we can do. We can't fit everybody in 2 lunch periods because the numbers are too high, and whoever the last group in won't have enough time to eat healthfully and safely. So we're trying to figure out what we can do. So we have some creative solutions that we're brainstorming right now.
Is it a space issue?
It's not a space issue, it's getting them through the lunch line.
So F&P ELA data and iReady ELA data. So on grade level for 22-23 is somewhat similar. We'll just say in the spring at each kindergarten through 5th grade. But it seems like when I go to the iReady information, there's it seems like there's the 2 or more are higher in the F&P, well, or the qualifies like support are much higher, and then the 2 or more is much lower. Like are they like reading this? It seems like more kids need more help in the F&P information than the iReady data when you're talking about 2 or more grade levels. So if I look at page
8.
Yeah, sorry.
What's the title?
If it's F&P ELA data for all the grades, and I look at 22-23, and then I look at the iReady ELA data for all the grades, the 22-23 proficient or on grade level they somewhat correlate to each other at the spring level, 81, 84, 74, and you go down 87, 76, 62. They somewhat make sense. But now if I go the 2 columns to the right from that, so it's on the F&P, it says qualifies for reading support. It's like 19, 15, 20, 25. And then I go to 2 or more years below grade level, it's like NA 1, 5, 14, 14, 30. Like there seems to be like there's this, are they not the same? Like what is the data difference really? What is the difference
So
between?
and I'll let Mrs. Teresi and Dr. Kramer jump in after me, but I think it goes back to what Dr. Kramer was setting up in the beginning. So when you look at the columns, the Fontes and Pinnell goes by level. So if you're 1 level below, you are in approaching. If you're 2 levels, that's not even a year yet, 2 levels below, you qualify for that support. With iReady, once you're out of proficiency, that's that year range. You could be, again, 2 days behind that target. You could be 11 months. So there's a wider range for that next category. It's not really apples and apples.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
So how does someone qualify for support? If they're 1 year behind and I'm using iReady data and the F&P data is so different.
That's what I
What
think the student
qualifies
would be
me
the
for
same.
support?
We have a chart, a district chart that's entrance and exit criteria for AIS. And it uses a combination of the F&P and the iReady scores. So you have to be a certain 2 levels below on F&P and then within a certain range on the iReady. And it's a combination of those things that helps us determine whether or not students qualify for support. And sometimes the student may only be low on one of the assessments because we know other things about them from the work that they've done in class, but typically both of the assessments are used in tandem to decide who qualifies for support because they measure different things.
Okay. Is that the,
Not my expertise here, Margaret.
Yeah,
but
did I
it's
do okay
not
with that, Margaret?
You know what, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Is that the best indicator of who really needs support?
Well, the guidance from the state is multiple measures.
Okay.
Not one measure. So what we're looking at actually is a pretty good picture because the F&P is done one-on-one. I'm reading to Lisa, and Lisa is giving me her responses. She's showing me how she word solves, and I'm getting scores from that information. The iReady is done on the computer. So there isn't a human interaction. You're answering questions that are coming to you based on grade level information. So we have that, and we have 2 different things. Then we have student work. What am I actually doing in my classroom on a day-to-day basis? Then depending on the grade, as we go up higher, we look at the New York State tests. And then, of course, there's always teacher input. So what you want to be able to look at is a holistic picture of how that kid is doing. And then it's interesting because we've been having this conversation at secondary since we're putting AIS at the high school. It used to be 1,000 years ago that if you got a 1 or a 2 on the ELA, you're in AIS. And then the state said, wait a minute. A kid could just not feel well that day or doesn't care anymore about this test. So they're just bubbling anything they feel like bubbling. Let's look at local benchmark data before we rush to put a kid into services or to take them out. So collaboratively, we built this chart, and I actually was talking to somebody today about we need to extend it now with multiple measures that will give us the broadest picture of how a student is actually performing on a day-to-day basis.
Is that chart provided to parents?
I can't hear.
Is that chart provided to parents?
No. That's
So-
an internal chart for teachers. It wouldn't mean anything to parents. We'd have to do lots and lots of workshops to explain that. You can go as a parent, and at your parent conference, the teacher will show you your F&P, will show your iReady score. But for us to share that, I think it's meaningless for them to see what that matrix looks like across 9 grades, I'm sorry.
Is F&P like still the industry standard that?
Pretty much, yes, because it measured, well, you know, there are a million reading inventories. So years ago it was DRA before Montez and Pinnell created this tool. They all do the same thing. They're all a measure of oral reading fluency, accuracy in terms of word solving. So one-on-one, I get a picture of what did you do when you came to that word you didn't know? Did you try to sound it out? Did you try to look at a picture? Did you try to think in context of what's happening in the story? What are the strategies that you have available to you? Because then I'm teaching in to the strategies that you're not using as well as I'd like you to. And then there's a comprehension piece at the end. So it's a different tool. But again, what you want is the broadest spectrum of that child as a reader.
Do you have more questions, Jen? I'm sorry.
Thanks. No. Thank you. I mean, everyone else asked most of mine. But
I just want to elaborate also with this. When you open up iReady for the students and you have the 7 components, it'll actually show you the grade level they are at each of those components. So then you're taking your FMP and you're working alongside with it. That's where you're showing the validity, because remember, there's iReady showing where you could go if you're advanced and if you're not so advanced. So there's more than these percentages. You have to actually see, which we would love to take the time and show how you open that iReady, look at the components, the phonemic awareness, the fluency, and how that fits with the FMP, and how we get to the comprehension piece. So that's not embedded in that tag.
We can certainly look at, and I actually think we've done this since I've been here. We did parent nights where we talked
Absolutely.
about
We
the
did.
assessment
And we
itself.
send pieces home like that.
Because we know parents don't understand, what does it mean? You may hear your kid say, oh, I had an FMP today. Well, what the heck is that? This is what it means for a child to sit through that kind of an assessment. In the beginning, I think the little guys are like, wait, what is this lady doing? She's sitting next to me making funny marks while I read. Now they're used to it as they move on. But it is good to have discrepant information because it helps you target where the real issue is. There is a tremendous amount of information that comes from these tools. The trick is getting people to focus on where should my instruction shift to based on what I'm saying.
And those are the conversations we're having at the data meetings.
Yeah.
We're taking all this information, we're sitting with the team of teachers, with the reading specialist, with the MTSS coach, next year with the literacy coach, and talking about what this data means and what the child's doing in the classroom and how do we put it all together and figure out what it is that that child needs for specific targeted instruction in the classroom.
So do these programs help teachers level within their classroom? Is this how, are teachers using this information to level their students?
Yes, to create those small groups, to create that one-on-one support, absolutely.
Remember also, because another point of confusion for people, is when Cindy, Josh, and Donna are talking about F&P levels. A level is not a grade level. So that assessment tool scores alphabetically A through Z. I think first grade has the widest span because of the developmental stages of a first grader. So there may be, I think we go into first grade at E or F, and the expectation is they come out closer to H or I. And you'll see them narrow as they get older. So when someone says 2 levels below in F&P, it's not 2 grade levels, it's 2 letters. And sometimes there are 8 levels in a grade, and sometimes there are only 4. So you have to really know what you're talking about and know the gradient to know what's happening. Those are great conversations at a parent conference when a teacher can take your students' data and show you where they are. Yep.
Where does enrichment fit into all of this big picture?
That's what we've been trying to get to, and we've had lots of conversations about trying to get to it this year, and then I think a lot of people felt a little overwhelmed with getting used to being together. I'm going to let Donna talk because she has her hand up, and I know she has some ideas.
I'm going now, I'll be going. I think that's the perfect part of the F&P and the iReady. We actually can capture those students that are advanced, and that's when the teacher and the subgroups are making the higher reading groups for those students and giving them maybe an extra research project of the student's interest with books tailored more to the level that they're reading. That's where the enrichment.
That's happening now in elementary.
It is happening, that I've seen it, yes. Yeah, I can say.
That's never happened when I was.
I had elementary students.
When you what?
When I had my elementary students weren't given extra.
But what you're doing is you have reading groups, correct? And according to the students' reading groups, those activities were different than the other children's in the other reading groups because those were tailored more to what those students were supposed to be receiving.
That's in the classroom, but we're not
Doing anything extra. We had wind blocks, we had Horizon.
Oh,
we're not
no,
doing anything like that.
No, the differentiated learning is occurring in the classroom with those kind of opportunities that we have. We do not have the other programs right now this year that wouldn't go out. No, but it is up to the teacher at this point to create those small groups looking at those F&Ps. That's why we encourage the teachers. Just don't use them every 3 times, fall, winter, and spring. If you think your child is moving ahead, start evaluating throughout the year. I should see in the folders more and more of them so that your groups are adjusting. So one student may be using an easier chapter book, another one could be reading War and Peace.
And what about math?
In the math, that's a little bit more difficult. What usually happens in a lesson, the teacher does give a lesson that is given with the module. And then I have seen in other classrooms, I can't speak for the other buildings, but she may entice the other students, you know what, we're doing multiplication, single digits, but you know what, why don't you do the 3 times the 2-digit multiplication? Or why don't you write word problems instead of solving word problems? That's where we're trying to push the emphasis on. So yes, we're teaching some kids to solve, but some other kids are writing them, which is a higher order piece of that. And that's important too. And that encourages the other kids to want to do a little bit more. So that center work that the students are getting, that they're moving through the centers while the teachers are working groups, that too is also leveled. Not everyone's getting the same centers.
I'll just elaborate. That's what's so important about giving the teachers time with the students and letting them rotate everybody. Because, okay, they're going to do the lessons for everybody. Some will get it immediately, and then they will be extended with, everything that Mrs. Teresi said. Some students, aren't really getting it that first time around. So you spending 20 minutes in that mini lesson won't help you. You're going to need to do that one-on-one or in a small group. And then there's some people on the fence that might just need a little bit more coaching or coaxing, and then they'll get it. So the more we can let students work with those teachers on their individual needs of all levels, the better off we'll be. Because they have schedules in every subject. They're rotating around to groups. They're checking in with the students that struggle more often. But that's why we want to allow them and set them up for success, to see each student individually and or in small groups as regularly as possible.
My last question was about staff collaboration. We keep hearing about the benefits of staff collaboration. I was hoping that maybe we could see some concrete examples in a presentation of that staff collaboration, common assessments, SMART goals by grade level, professional development by grade level. I think it would be helpful for the community to see those concrete examples.
Is there any other questions? Thank you all for being here and answering all of our questions and taking us through all of the data. Okay, moving along to our committee reports. Do you have any committee reports to share tonight?
I know we had the strategic plan committee that you invited me to.
Well, that was just strategic plan. That was just what we've been working on throughout the year. You got to go to the final in-person of the year session.
I mean, it was pretty impressive, the amount of volunteer work and the amount of work from the community members. The one thing I was unclear about, and just from being at the table, is a lot of these initiatives that are coming up through strategic planning cost money. And I think the community needs to be aware of, where we're going to get that money from to support those initiatives, because there's a lot of volunteer time going into this.
I think that we probably, I think that's next part, that's like the next.
So the next phase is figuring that out. I mean, a lot of the things, like the communications director, the HR director, all those things that we had put up, the guidance director, all came from strategic plan, right? So those were direct initiatives that were coming out of that already. So, and we have seen this happen throughout the year. I mean, communication wise, we're shifting, we're looking at different vendors for things. So things are happening just within our regular function. But you're right, there are other things that we are going to have to identify and see if we can plan for. And the community's going to have to weigh in, just like they weighed in on the directors we put forward.
Is there when's our next update from strategic plan?
I don't know. They changed the strategic plan meetings to like Thursdays at 2 o'clock, and I had a standing meeting, so I wasn't on the last. Did they?
I was the only one on the last call.
Okay. It's like the worst time.
I don't know the next community update.
Okay. We'll find out and we'll provide
maybe
it
that
the next
might
board
summarize what the priorities are for each pillar.
Because I think the last time we met with them, we got information that they were all finalizing that piece, right? So I think that's.
I think the plan was for the fall because we have a contract with them through October.
Right.
Okay, so the plan was for us to have this final meeting, and I wasn't on the last meeting as a group either, because I was on vacation, but I think that we had planned on doing this in person, seeing where we were. They were going to give us a report out, and then in the fall, they were going to present where we were.
Okay. All right. Any other committee reports? I think that's it, right?
So I have no committee report.
Okay.
Sorry. See if it's tomorrow. I'll be the last one. So I have two things I want to share. I don't know if I can name names on this one, so I'll just speak generally, but I'm going to say thank you to a high school teacher, Mr. Perlman, and to Dr. Lauro and to Dr. Kramer. There is a student we have who is a kindergartner, and that student has a sister that is a graduate from Hendrick Hudson High School 2019, I think, and is currently active duty U.S. Army. And Mr. Perlman had arranged, and Dr. Kramer was really great and accommodating to make this get pulled off. This kindergarten student has always dreamed of having a soldier reunification with her sister. And I guess she asks her mom, do you think my soldier is ever going to get to surprise me in school one day? So the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend,
It was arranged, and this young lady had just returned home from being overseas for I think plus or minus a year, and they did a soldier reunification in the sisters' kindergarten classroom, and there was not a dry eye in the room. It was an amazing thing. It's probably one of my favorite things that I've got to experience as a board member. And so to Dr. Kramer and to Dr. Lauro and Scott Perlman for arranging it all, thank you so much. I think it was awesome. And then the second is for Christina Fiel and her team. We were fortunate to be invited to the Sailor Program graduation a couple of weeks ago at the high school, and that is also one of the best events I've attended here this year. It was incredible. The staff there absolutely loves their students. I mean, I don't know how to articulate it appropriately except to say thank you. We're lucky to have you, and they're lucky to have you too, but I know you probably feel like you're lucky to have them. It was amazing. The program is outstanding. We got a little tour of the different classrooms that are utilized, and it was incredible. Just the way each teacher spoke about each of those students, knew what it was that made them tick and how to help them become successful. So thank you very much for including us in that. Lisa, thank you for that invitation. It was a really great experience. And I am excited because hopefully we've got transportation worked out, and I think starting in July we're going to be able to have the Sailor program work in our offices too. So thank you very much.
That's great. Wonderful. Other new business. This is a question for the board. I just want to make sure everybody is in support of it. Stephanie Hickey volunteered. She's interested to go to the 2023 Leadership in Education event this summer. Before we send her off, I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and supportive of Stephanie going to learn for us and bring back knowledge.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks for volunteering, Steph. Great. Carmen, do I need a vote on that? No. All right, so that's one. We have that, yep, and I know, Stephanie, you had a couple things as well.
I do.
All right, let's take care of this policy, and then I want to talk about, I'd actually like for Erica to give a little update on our policy list, and Stephanie has an idea that we may want to throw over onto it.
Okay.
Take out your diatribe, your nice.
It's a scroll.
You don't have
little
it?
scroll.
That's okay. If you don't have it, that's fine. We can add whatever.
I have it because I literally don't leave my house without it, but, I mean, I don't. I can read it.
No, don't worry. But Steph, we'll do that after. Let's just take care of this.
Can before I don't want to forget this. So, and I have a senior, and I still have, but I'm gonna say this. We did a lot of, this is like the week of our seniors. So Monday was the award ceremony, and it was wonderful. I mean, there's so much work that goes into it by our staff. The kids it was a great event. We honored a lot of our students. I don't know the number that we honored, but it was a ton, which was awesome. A very diverse group of awards and kids, which was awesome. We did the walkthroughs. The kids were welcomed with open arms in the elementary schools. I think the kids at the elementary schools loved it. I'd love to get them to the middle school next year. Now that we take them all up to Furnace Woods, I think we should hop over to the middle school and bring them there too. And then we have graduation on Friday, and they're all at the prom right now. So look for the pictures on Facebook, I'm sure. So it's a big week for them, but I think what we forget is we do this all for the kids. This is the culmination of their 13 years of school, and the staff within these buildings works really hard to pull this off for the kids. And I just wanted to go on record with thanking them, and the PTA, the high school PTA specifically, what they pulled off in the dome tonight for the kids with the pictures. I mean, it is just, I don't know. I feel like my child has been very lucky, and his classmates. So, and it's been an honor watching them grow up as somebody that's been involved with many of them since kindergarten. So, but anyway, thank you for all the work there. And you want to get through the policy and then go to the other policy? Sure. Okay.
That's good. And thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so at our last board meeting, we discussed a small revision to the mission statement, and I'm going to read it now as it stands. The Hendrick Hudson School District communicates its educational philosophy through its mission statement and core beliefs. Mission of the Hendrick Hudson School District, a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community, is to ensure each student is an engaged, passionate learner who achieves maximum potential and contributes to society. This is accomplished. So this was the discussion was, should it be singular? Should it be plural? Should it be his? Should it be her? Should it be there? Should it be all of it? How do we change it? And I think that the whole sentence probably needs even more revamping, but this is the proposed change for now. Unless strategic plan or something else tackles the entire mission.
So I like the idea of revising it to be as inclusive as possible.
I do think it reads a little weird. I will support.
I think it always
what people want, what this board wants, because I do think it's necessary. So I have a question. I'd like to just read it, and see what your thoughts are. So the mission of the and it's not changing much. It's just the mission of the Hendrick Hudson School District, a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community, is to ensure students are engaged, passionate learners who achieve their maximum potential and contribute to society. My thought is, if you pluralize the word students, the there is the correct use of the word. I was struggling with it last meeting, trying to write it all down. And then I spent some time and I didn't send it to everyone, so I apologize, but I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
I don't disagree. Last week, there was an argument made, and I'm just not educated enough to have been able to have it in real time, but it was said that that is currently a plural, which it's not. Naturally, each student is singular. But so to your point, Jen, I think that it makes sense if we're going to adjust it to a plural to then use there, and it works, and it also coincides with the other statements that were used plurally within the rest of the mission statement. So it brings it from a singular to a plural. Then again, it goes against the concept of teaching to each individual child, but that's okay for right now. We could leave it as a plural and check all those boxes at the same time.
I think I asked Carmen, we don't need to have another meeting to vote on this if we move with this. I wanted to, we could talk about it, but I just wanted to put it out there.
I'm okay with that. And
Jen's version?
Yeah.
I'm okay with Jen's version. Can you read it one more time?
Sure. The mission of Hendrick Hudson School District, a dynamic, innovative, and supportive educational community, is to ensure students are engaged, passionate learners who achieve their maximum potential and contribute to society.
That's so much better.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one, Jen. Can I just ask a question before we vote on this?
In our athletic handbook, the mission statement that was it's updated from 2020. The mission statement is for the Hendrick Hudson School District is different. So what I want to just request that whatever we do here gets updated there.
In the athletic handbook?
Yes.
I'm okay with the revision, but I'm not understanding how the revision came about. And just a little background information on that. On February 11th, I emailed the policy committee at the Board of Ed and asked about a policy to revise it. And I again emailed on June 1st and received nothing back. So being new on the board, and then after you told me that policy committee only met once this year, I'm not quite sure in one meeting how this came about, and going forward, especially for new people, because I was new this year, how you even address this, because like I said, I brought it up on February 11th and I again brought it up on June 1st, and I've had radio silence.
What did you bring up?
I honestly don't know what you're referring to.
The code of conduct I brought up on February 11th, I have the email here. I emailed it to all Board of Ed members. I'm not on the policy committee, and I was told to bring it to the policy committee. And then when Corey brought up this revision, I thought I somehow did it wrong, being new, that I didn't know.
I mean, honestly, what day did you send that?
June 1st. The first email was sent on February 11th. The second email was sent on June 1st.
To me?
To the whole Board of Ed.
This was about videotaping.
This was about the code of conduct, not including anything regarding non-consensual photographing.
This
or
is not
taping.
policy, though. This is, the code of conduct is the district, not the policy committee.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's
So-
not for me to answer as a policy committee member.
So
that's a district issue.
But this is a separate topic. Can we stay on this topic and get this done, and then we can talk about that? Is that fair?
Sure, Corey. As long as we're going back to that. Okay.
So can we make a motion to accept the
Jen's version?
the Jen's version of the amendment to the mission statement?
Second.
We can, right?
Who said first?
So I made the motion to accept the statement as amended by Jen.
I'll email it to you, Carmen.
Okay.
So right now they're voting on the amendment. Okay.
I didn't see, did
Who
everybody
seconded?
all in favor of that?
Jen seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor? And then that's for Jen's amendment, and now we have to vote on the whole policy
As, yeah.
So can I have a motion to approve the amended? This is so weird.
Second.
All in favor?
So the code of conduct will be open for revisions and public comment starting right after the reorganization meeting in July. And it's open for at least 30 days, and that's when changes like that could be proposed by board members or people from the public, and then you'll approve that at the end of August, right before the school year starts. About the code of conduct.
We actually have the dates.
August 9th. We're gonna shoot for August 9th.
Okay, so then let's just talk about policy, because I would have thought that I would get an email that addressed that, because then I wouldn't have had this misunderstanding. So if one of us wants to change policy, how is that communicated to the policy committee? And then what does the policy committee do with that?
So you could.
So you could just go over how this was done.
Let me just point, I think it's clearer what. So what occurred? I came in February 27th, and I can remember whispering in Erica's ear, no policies with all that was going on.
Right.
So I'll take responsibility that, I just said there was too much commotion on what was going on to add that whole discussion at the table when we were doing so much. And then we said as soon as it was over and the vote was over in early June, we should get on a schedule. And normally what is done is that I know there are things that are missing, so we're trying to address all the policies that are required by the state that are not there as priority one. Then what normally happens is the superintendent along with the board decides on here we go, let's start with the very beginning of the book and say we're going to be working with the 1000s, the 2000s, and you keep plugging through them, and that rotation should start going every 3 or 4 or 5 years. So, and we are just at the beginning of that. So first, all the missing ones we need to do ASAP, and then a process of taking them by groups.
But the question is that if you have a concern, or you have a question, or you have an idea for a policy or an amendment to a policy, yes, you can talk to the board here, and then policy committee can go back and they can discuss it in their meetings with the superintendent, and then report back to us. Or you can pick up the phone and call somebody on the policy committee and ask them to bring it up at their next meeting.
And how often, Dennis, in normal school districts, sorry, I should say normal, in other, regular, other districts, does the policy committee meet?
I don't.
Because I'm thinking
that
more than
varies.
once a
It's
year.
no, it is more than once a year. But I would say to you that what you would have a spot on the agenda all of the time to get through. We're way behind.
Okay.
So I would start when we do the reorg. One of my suggestions is that we just begin at the very beginning of the year and start to go through them. Now, some of them will require a reading and no change at all, and others may have this kind of thing where it's a couple of changes and it may take 2 readings or so to get it done.
There's like
And to give you a little history, Stephanie, so I've been on policy since I started. It used to meet monthly, and it was very regular, and we always had updates, and then COVID hit. And then we met somewhat irregularly. After COVID, we started meeting again, but I would say as things started to move with other priorities in the district, the policy committee just kind of slowed down, as Dr.
There's
Lewis
like
said.
17 policies that we need to amend
There's
or
so many.
add, or, I mean, it's terrible.
I just wanted to know the procedure.
Yeah.
I don't think we necessarily have a procedure.
It's
I mean, we have
amazing.
not, we don't really have a procedure, so we need to establish that.
Yeah, well, it's either raised at a board meeting during
Or you talk to us
other
offline,
matters,
you email.
or it's an email to the entire board, or it's through the superintendent. That if you have something, you raise it through either the president or the superintendent, and then it's brought to the policy committee. That's what used to happen.
Okay.
So we haven't really followed that since COVID, to be quite honest.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Was there something besides the one that's in the code of conduct that you wanted?
I did want to just say this, because a lot of people have talked about being fearful of getting at that podium. And one of the fears also is being videotaped and being screenshot and reposted on Facebook, made a meme out of. So I was wondering, I don't even know if you can do it, if we could have an audience comment that is at the beginning for people who do not want to be videotaped, to make it more comfortable for everybody, especially with the negativity of social media. Like, I never thought I'd be saying this. I would not want to be up there now and be put on social media and screenshot. I think it's limiting the number of people who come to speak.
So always email.
Hold on.
Yeah, but their email is different. I should be able to come and speak to you and have my voice heard and not be fearful that I'm going to be screenshot and put on social media. Or just repeat it, or maybe, like, I just think that it would be nice. Maybe no one uses it. You know, like, we do public audience comment in the beginning. You know, we're going to do 5 minutes or 6 minutes of non-videotaped public comment for people who do not want to be videotaped.
I think one of the big issues, which is in this country right now, is that our privacy laws have not kept up with some of the technology and right? So this is one of my areas, right? Privacy. And unfortunately, once you step out of your house in public, anything you do is fair game according to the laws in the U.S., which is the challenge.
Yeah, but doesn't
Not
mean
in
that
the
we can't
school,
make it
not in the
private.
school situation.
Right. But then we also have the open meetings law, which, maybe there's a way where we could have people submit things in writing that could be read on their behalf. But does that violate any kind of open meetings law by not having
So
the person
if
do it
you-
themselves? And
I
then
mean,
it
maybe it's
becomes
just a
volume
question to
issue
Stephanie
also.
Roebuck, if you can do it.
Yeah.
If it's possible. I don't know, but I just think
There was
it's
a
a nice
day-
option.
Yeah, we can't stop
It is an
people from
interesting thought.
posting stuff,
Well,
right?
no.
But give people other opportunities that maybe protect their confidentiality a little bit more. But from an open meetings perspective, you're supposed to say who you are and.
They still
They're
would.
still
They're
doing
just not
it.
going to be recorded
Yeah,
It's
and
not going to be on
televised.
Be on
YouTube, so
video.
someone could be
But you'll still
mean-spirited and
have
screenshot.
the audio, and you'll still be able to capture the audio and reproduce the audio, and you'll still be able to reproduce the transcript.
But why would
So
you
you
still
just
have
won't
the
have that
audio?
picture.
You would just
Just
cut
stop
the
you pause the
video.
Oh, you're saying just,
I don't know if you can do that.
but then you're violating open meetings law.
No, you're not.
Yeah, why not?
It's not
But that's a
open.
Stephanie
We're
Roebuck
open.
guy.
This is public.
Why don't we,
Yeah.
Just
let's
ask.
ask Steph.
Yeah.
She's the expert,
Yeah.
and let's see what she says.
Not having
and not,
Greg
and then we
recording
can
is not a violation of open meetings law. There's no
not
law that
recording,
says,
so we have-
yeah.
Right, there's no requirement to have a recording going.
No.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just a safe space.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
Oh my goodness.
So moved.
Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.